cover the entire cemetery budget for a few years, for our lean years here.
It was the interest we were using, right?
Correct.
It wasn't the funds from,
Right.
it was the interest that we were
Yes,
using.
we figured out the best guess scenario with the amount of records that we have to be entirely, absolutely safe as to what we started with, which I think we actually started with less, but this is to be safe, that we would never spend interest. So you have multiple years that you can utilize those funds.
Okay.
And yes, the perpetual care is there, and we take allocations out to take care of the cemeteries.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we're on that informal budget freeze, and we are now done with the general discussion. So you've got all the larger budgets that we received. I work with a couple of departments and help them with their budgets, which aren't in here, and then the rest are all my budgets to do, and
So
staff.
who are we missing for people that you worked with?
Recreation and cemetery. Cemetery sexton requested I do a budget for him. And he's just
Recreation makes sense.
And recreation, I'm doing, Susie just said keep it the same. I need 2 items, so I'm just doing that for her. All the rest of the
So
budget.
it's cemetery and recreation?
Yes, yeah. And then the others are administrative type budgets, and so, we do those in-house anyway, because we run those departments. So the ones you received was fire department, police department, communications, animal control, public works, which is highway and grounds and buildings. You also received transfer station, recycling, library, and you would have got theater. And then we got water sewer. Water sewer is a little bit more complicated this year, so we're still working on that.
Don't we still need to plan for the theater for the base expenses?
Yes, but that's easy enough to do.
Okay.
And then once I'm done with that,
I mean, hopefully it'll go away.
Can that come out of a general fund?
I think we would leave the theater budget there, or put it on the buildings and grounds.
Are we gonna go through each of these budgets?
Yes, if you'd like to. I'm sure you must have a few questions. And then any department heads you want to meet with, we can decide when you want to do it, and which one.
We wanna start,
So the first one we have is fire department. And if you look at the overall budget and you look at the operating budget part, which is what the departments actually work on, they don't work on what their pay is or what their workers' comp or social security would be. We fill those in. And we won't know the pay until we know the overall budget or what we've got, what we're dealing with here.
Right.
Which is in progress. So this is 0% increase in the fire department budget. I spoke with the fire chief about that, and he indicated that due to the economy and the fact that people just don't have money, he did not feel comfortable increasing the budget, and so he would keep it the same due to the situation everybody's in.
so,
He's
we know
done
that
that,
that
he's
can-
done that for
Yeah.
a few years.
Do we know that that can stay even with the increases in salaries that have to happen, or is that a separate account?
I think he felt comfortable, he would leave it the same.
Okay.
so, last time we talked with the fire chief, there were some concerns about building improvements and, some other safety issues within the building. And I noticed that building here under maintenance there's nothing in it at all, either for the 2019 the 2020 or the 2021 budget.
So he has his own, I set up because, people wanted to take care of their own areas, or, you had 3 departments that would utilize one account. We set up their own reserve, so everybody had their own reserve. So police has their own reserve and can use the monies. Fire has their own reserve, so they can use the money, and the municipal building.
Maintenance type stuff is gonna come out of reserves
Yeah.
versus.
What kind of maintenance?
Well, we'll go into that. The municipal budget one is the larger one, covering the excess areas like the town office, and then the council chambers, the bathrooms, and the air conditioning and everything.
Right, the outside of the building.
Yeah, and the fire department covers, actually the fire department itself, the station. The police department one covers their areas, their police station area.
Okay.
So everybody's got their own monies to do their projects on.
So the fire department reserve, do they have multiple reserve accounts? Like one for equipment like fire trucks? That would be separate from
But
the
that's-
building reserve?
They
Not,
have- they
that's a
have two.
capital improvement, right?
Yeah, they have 2 reserve accounts, and then we did set up the,
And there's not much money in them.
the equipment one has a lot of money. The fire station reserve has maybe 3 allocations of 5,000 in it, so they could do some projects. And with council approval, you could move the monies between the fire department accounts if you needed to. The municipal building has more, but we do utilize that. We've done a lot of work on the elevator. We did plumbing, we did sewer system. We had backflow preventer. We've done a number of things throughout the building. We did the lighting and everything at one point. So that's had a lot of use. We were trying to save that for the air conditioning and heating system on the roof because that is the age of the building. So
in the-
after the roof was done, that would be the next item to save
In the
money toward.
budget stuff, Catherine, when we're talking about the reserve accounts, where do we see that money going in? Is that in the general?
Yes, there's a lot, yes, it's in the general
So it wouldn't
fund.
actually go under the fire department
Correct.
budget because it comes from the general, you just separate it out
Yes.
percentage-wise, I'm assuming.
Yes, if we have to separate it out or end up going to unappropriated surplus and you want to save it. So it goes into its own special account, which has a control account on the general ledger.
So do we know how much is going into the fire department reserve? To know what they have available because I know that they were having some issues structurally. I remember hearing that there was some stuff that needed to happen. I don't remember if it was the concrete floor or, I feel like there was something, and I don't remember what it was.
Would that come out of the reserve?
It would, yes.
But I want
That
to make
wouldn't
sure
come
that
out
we've
of-
got money in there to cover that. That's what I'm asking, is how much is going into that reserve.
All right, so I brought those last meeting when we went through all the reserves,
Right.
and I didn't bring down a copy this
And I
time.
didn't-
Of course, I would ask that
That's
question.
okay. Yeah, I figured we were gonna do the budget, but, I can,
That's all right, Catherine, you can email that answer
yeah, I
later.
can do that. I don't see, I did bring one of those down. Boy, I got a lot of budget information here, just not reserved.
So, under, there's equipment maintenance, 3,500, and then there's equipment purchase, 6,000. Where would we, PPE equipment, that is, I'm guessing would need to be more than this year's budget.
That's what I was.
If we're talking like every time they respond, they gotta like mask up and gloves and everything else, so I guess I was expecting some type of increase in here just because of that one thing that they're gonna have to do. And I know there was some concern about some of their turnout gear needing to be replaced and the air tanks. I think we had a conversation about air tanks last year and the masks and those types, like the actual.
SCBA, you're talking about the
Yes.
SCBA.
Yeah, the systems that they use.
Well, they have to be.
Those things were aging out, as well as there was something else electronic. I can't remember what it was though.
I thought we replaced some of that turnout stuff already, though.
We did,
But it's like an
yes.
ongoing thing.
We sort of have to keep doing it.
You don't usually like do the whole department one year and then not do it for 15 years and then do, you know what I mean? It's like an
Mhm.
ongoing thing. You kind of go through the guys each year and a certain number of them, or if you have new people coming on, which would be a nice thing to have to buy a whole bunch of new turnout gear if we had some more guys.
I do agree that that PPE equipment budget should
What is
probably.
PPE?
Personal protective
protective
equipment, gloves, masks, all of that stuff, you would expect that to go up with what we're dealing with right now.
Catherine, is
Not
that what that
necessarily.
item, is that what that item is?
So PPE would cover,
they don't-
all of the items to do with like bloodborne pathogens kits,
Yes, that's
all
not,
the different items, you know, as you said, your masks, the gloves is a big item for that. Anything to do with any safety item whatsoever.
the
Can't
pads, they
imagine
get the
that
pads
should
they
stay.
use to
Yes.
soak up
To clean
oil
up
and
everything,
gasoline,
yes.
like
That's
they
not
do.
PPE though.
It has been
It
charged.
think
falls
it has
under
been.
the equipment budget line for that, even at the university too, they consider, even though it's actually a right, not.
Yeah.
It's more hazmat.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I find it hard to believe that $7,000 is going to be enough because the cost for rubber gloves and for masks itself has gone up.
It's
So I just
doubled.
want a lot.
I had a really good supplier and the cost has doubled, and their supply and the different varieties of things that they have has severely been reduced. Like you can't
Yeah.
get certain size gloves now.
Absolutely.
It's very spotty if you can find it.
I'd like to see that part revisited to make sure that it's,
All right, so
Enough.
this is why we're here, so
Yeah.
we'll write that one down as an item to look at. We'll ask about the plan for this SCBA and the mask. We'll ask about the PPE. Now, I will say, we're way under budget to date on the COVID-19 grant that we received, although we haven't got our first allocation back yet, reimbursement. So we would plan by the due date to purchase everything that we could need that falls under the categories and clean that out to zero. So we will have some supplies available. But I agree with you, the getting the materials, we've gotten everything we've asked for, but it takes a while to get it. It's really backlogged, so you have to plan ahead. And we've gotten all the sizes we want, but the costs have just gotten ridiculous. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be the biggest question that I have, and then my other question about the building maintenance, but if they're gonna use their reserve
Yeah.
account for that.
Now, I will say, last year Bernard turned back money to the town.
He's extremely frugal.
He is.
And if he can get it for nothing, he does.
Mhm.
And he doesn't charge the town.
Yes, well, often his bills for $1 that we get from the surplus office aren't cash.
Yeah.
And they're the checks we have to void out.
And the other question I had is that I know it zeroes out in the end, but there's, like, under emergency management, we had a really big storm this spring, which I would guess would have increased those expenses beyond what we had budgeted for. But at the same time, some of those items are eligible for reimbursement from the MEMA, from Emergency Management. So where does that, is it kind of like the police example where those things that we put in for reimbursement, they go into the general fund instead of going back in to cover the expenses for the fire department?
So far, that storm was not declared by the state so that we could get monies back, but we did file the paperwork in case it was. So everything is charged in the budget right now. If we get toward the end of the year and it looks like we'll get FEMA money, I'll move all their expenses out into a special line. And then we'll do an accounts receivable. But right now, it looks like for that storm, because it only affected a few counties, we didn't meet the threshold for reimbursement. We did do the paperwork though.
And is the fire department one of the departments that you said is going to be going over because of those extra costs and time
I don't
for
believe so,
managing that?
no.
You think they'll still be under budget? for that?
I've never seen Bernard go over.
Yeah.
He's very good at keeping under his budget.
They, how many years ago now, Catherine, since they all did the training, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, instructor 1, instructor 2, so, and they didn't charge, this is just an example. The town did not actually pay for those things, they paid for it themselves out of their.
Oh, they may have used the firefighter relief fund?
Correct. So
They have their own little.
They have their
fund.
own little account, and he uses, sometimes they use that, that's how they bought the wagon, the new wagon.
Yes, so fundraising things.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on the fire department budget?
Everybody ready to go on to police?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one's police department.
So under the comments here, are these adjustments that need to be made to these numbers that were submitted, or?
All right, so the personnel services is not submitted by the the departments, the town does those, like
We
the
don't
social.
even look at that part because it's all contractual and
Yeah, we just-
union and.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we would really start down partially in the personnel expenses, like the health would be a certain amount, UC, WC, you wouldn't be affected by those, and that's why he's got zeros in there. So
Right.
the police would start with travel line 0520. And so basically in this first little section, he's got an increase of $295.
Additional training
For travel? Or
for
yeah.
mandatory training.
Mandatory training is
Oh.
increased.
That's not a huge increase.
So these were pretty much the same.
Okay, well, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Catherine, under this though, I don't see anything that has to do with like PPE, which I assume we've had to provide for them with everything going on as well.
Okay, what do we, I didn't hear you.
The PPE, that, cause they would need masks, and I don't see a budget line for that.
So
Because they
would-
don't wear them.
All right, they would be, this is the way the budget is set up, they would be taking it out of supplies.
Out of supplies,
Yeah,
okay.
so, right now, we have the COVID-19 items that we, either the safety officer orders the items for the safety departments, and then we're upstairs ordering them for everybody else and having them come on and get things, because it's a different type of order. So, Donnie does the order for police, water, sewer, transfer station, recycling. And then those are certain things from the COVID-19 grant, and then I do the order with Melody for everything, all the other departments, because the items are different.
So should that budget actually go down, the general supplies budget? Cause it went down $1,100.
That's what, from analyzing his expenses, that's what he's put in.
Okay.
Amanda, which line are you finding that?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with this
I-
because there's
I'm in
Supplies 10-05.
10 dashboards.
The general,
Yeah,
Yeah.
general
General
supplies.
General supplies. Okay, so this is PP, you're saying this is PPE also?
That's where you can put it. I mean, some people will put it in uniform.
so he's not actually calling it PPE.
Correct,
Right.
yeah. And Benai probably would be likely to call it PPE, because that's how fire departments list it.
Of
Right.
course.
Whereas the rest of us put it in supply accounts.
Okay, so anybody else outside of the fire department will see that as a supply?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That
And
clarifies it.
again-
Then I don't have to ask it again.
And again, we can look that over to see exactly where we'll be in another month or half a month.
I mean, fingers crossed, we won't have to worry about this next year the same way, but we should prepare for it just in case.
Exactly. So we'll need to see, like I said, we've hardly drawn on the grant where we would be right now. It expires at a certain point. So at that point, anything that we've already put in for, we can buy, and we can buy it more if we need it. So
Okay.
this would be where we would stock up on
When
things
is
that we
that
need.
grant expiring? Like, what's the date as far as the last expenses that can be applied to the grant?
Mhm. All right, well, the contract has numerous dates that conflict. And then there's numerous people contacting me about all the other reports that get to be filed that aren't in the grant. So this is a typical federal grant. The last expenditure is October 31st. It stops right before the election on purpose, so it doesn't cover the elections. However, we will be buying what we need, which everybody is through the end of the year, and you just buy up your items that you need. We started slow because we didn't know how well we were going to get reimbursed, and we had already, due to opening up and getting ready, had already bought a big slew of things. So we had a supply
Right,
when the
before
grant
we
came
even-
in, so we didn't go out and just buy, we're buying as we need it. But at the end, we'll close up that grant at zero here.
How much was that grant?
$28,100.
I think we really need to be cautious about waiting until the last minute to actually place orders for things. Because going into winter, you're going into flu season, the schools have been opening up, and there's more demand now, I think, for PPE than there was before, because there's so many more people out and about, more businesses are opening. And I think waiting too far to the end, Everyone else that got those grants is also going to wanna be stocking up and zeroing out their grants as well, and I think we'd be better off just I mean, you know what we need for now, you know, as far as sizes and things like that. We should really be stocking up now and having it on hand. I know our cash flow is a little off, but at the same time, if you put an order in and you can't pay for it and get the supplies, then you're not gonna be able to apply it to the
So
grants.
we have to wait until we get our first reimbursement approved to make sure that it's going to be appropriate. And right now that is not approved. So if that's approved in a reasonable time frame, we'll wait for that so we can make sure that the state and federal government are happy with our expenditures. Because right now, everything's been rejected from many towns, including
Really?
us.
Did they not give a list of what's expected?
So they gave out the grants, but.
Yeah, the
they're-
grants were given out very quickly, but
But they're not approving everything, or
The,
a lot of things.
the forms that are required are different than what's in the contracts, and so almost everybody got, talked to.
So it's not the items, then it's the process being used to
It's the
request these
process.
as the forms.
However, they want now, which wasn't in the grant, they want the payroll weekly, but we did the payroll monthly because we have stipends for people. So we need to make sure we're gonna be able to cover this before we do another order,
And that's at the state level?
federal level.
Federal level.
Administered by the state, and they're sorry about this, but, and from being on the airport discussion yesterday on the grant, this is coming down at all federal levels, everything has changed here. It's because of a lack of money, basically. So, yeah, I wanna be cautious here, make sure that we're gonna get everything approved, and then we'll have a list already, and then we'll just order some of it as we go along. We're not gonna wait till October 31st.
But these are all things we're going to need going ahead anyway. So these are expenditures we're going to need to make in the future.
Right, masks and
We had
gloves
such a
and.
stockpile when the time came, because we put in the orders ahead of time. There was no grants at that time, but we figured, let's cover ourselves because everybody was starting to buy, and we thought we don't wanna run out. So we were in, you know, it cost us money, which you couldn't get reimbursed on, but we have been fine all along. It's only, like in the last couple of weeks, we started using the stuff that we ordered under the grant. So we just need to not order everything at once, not wait till the end, but filter our orders in, once we make sure our first reimbursement will be approved.
And if that doesn't come until the third week of October,
We won't wait that long.
okay.
Yeah, we just, well, I would feel more comfortable knowing that, they're going to approve our paperwork.
Because we only got about a month to go.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not worried. We had a good supplier, the costs were higher, but we got everything that we asked for.
You've done enough federal grants anyway.
Yes,
To know
yes.
how they work.
No, that's okay, I'll just keep doing the paperwork and saying, I'm so sorry, you know, help me.
Okay,
Maintenance, purchase,
so would you just,
you know.
when you know that they're gonna accept the paperwork and everything and gonna put in that big order, would you let us know?
Oh, yeah, well,
When that-
we'll do multiple orders, so it doesn't.
So we don't go greedy?
Huge order.
Well, no, I mean, sometimes if you put a really big order in, they might just say, well, we can't fill this. But if you put a smaller order in, you might get
Exactly.
3 smaller orders filled, but not one big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Catherine, I had a question, and this goes back to kind of grants. The police department, I'm looking at 20-05 equipment purchase. 11,500 for 2019, $13,000 for 2020, 13,000 for 2021 with a $1,500 increase or 13.04%.
Mhm.
Pistols, lights, holsters, tasers, and the annual contract to maintain them, and then radar. Some of the police department equipment that's been purchased was purchased with grant funds. So does that fall along the same lines of the expense goes in the expense budget and then the grant funds come in on the other side of the balance sheet under revenues?
So, let's say the items have already been purchased under the grant, they become part of the inventory, so they're part of the expense budget. For the new items coming in, there's a couple of old grants, they have their own expense and revenue budget in the special revenues. And then what we do is match them up to equal out unless you don't spend it all. If you don't spend it all, it's coded, so it goes to the general fund and to the grant special revenue fund, and then the money is saved there until it's expended.
So, I'm still confused.
So it's separated for the equipment.
Even though it's showing I guess what I'm asking is, even though it's showing an increase here, is it truly an increase in their budget if they are receiving grant funding for items?
Well, there should be nothing indicate in this budget for their grants, because this isn't their grants budget.
But the expenses are being shown here because they're gonna, or they
No.
have, or they're going to purchase.
This should be only for those items, we'll clarify this. This should be only for those items that don't have grant funding.
Okay.
It
That's-
should
I
only-
guess that was what I was actually
There we
asking.
go.
All right, we went
I'm
around
on
the
the same-
bottom.
we're on the same
We did
page
it a
now.
couple times. I was just trying to figure out how to ask the right question.
Okay, I'll check on that to make sure.
Grant.
I think the one I'm biggest concerned about is 25-05, where we've had a $13,000 increase. And I'm curious how we went from
Yes.
$1,000
Mhm.
to 14,000.
Mhm.
I see that there's Ad Dirigo Safety Power, DMS Bonnie staff, but
Mhm.
I thought we were
What's that
losing
Bonnie
staff and
staff?
agency.
Yeah, he's put Bonnie's staff in there, but really it doesn't belong there because we're not gonna hire any more people from any staffing agency. So currently, in the budget, he has, money's budgeted for secretarial help under the personnel,
Mhm.
but we had used the staffing agency, which has not worked out. So you can't charge the staffing agency a contract, a vendor to the personnel lines, because then we'll be charged workers' comp and unemployment for it. So we charge it to the contracts line, which means that in this particular budget, because it was a contracted staff person, your personnel costs are gonna be less and your contractual will be more.
So he's just doing that based off of what happened this.
Yeah, with the wording, I didn't see, again, I didn't change anything
I'm
Yeah.
still
or
gonna-
suggest it. I would cross out Bonnie staffing.
Okay.
I'm
And then the
so-
Dirigo Safety thing, that's new, because it says add?
That was added last year, for this year's budget,
Yeah.
so it's not new anymore. He's just left the same wording from the year before.
So,
Yeah, because that was that new project that was 3 years.
so are we saying that he only needs the $1,000?
Well, he's
I
saying,
see $14,000 there.
he's saying he needs $14,000. Let's ask about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like to get
I think that's
clarification.
way too high. And advertising, isn't all our advertising taken out of an advertising budget regardless of what department it is?
No, each of the budgets has their own advertising
Okay.
funds, if they utilize funds. If it's council approved items, it comes from the clerk's budget for the general items, but if something is for the cemetery, if something is like a police program, if something is the household hazardous waste program, it will come from the individual budgets.
Individual departments, okay.
So that you have your cost center, your true costs of your cost center.
And they utilized it this year to advertise positions, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
that's what I thought.
Catherine, did you meet with Pete to go over this before it was submitted to the, committee?
No, this was pretty clear, except for a couple of figures here.
Okay,
No.
so that's.
No, the budgets were all in pretty good shape this year. Just the formatting was mixed up, but the budgets were actually in good shape.
I'm wondering if
Well,
that extra 13,000 should be up in the personnel line and it was moved there because of the previous position we had done with staffing.
Well, we'll double check on that, but he knows that he has administrative support in the personnel budget, because he's got a note here where he's got after, the SRO and administrative position should be in this number.
Okay.
So he knows that the administrative position would be up there,
Okay.
because it's a regular position for secretary. And then the SRO he wants up there, but it's better because we're being reimbursed and have a revenue budget to have that in a separate line item.
So maybe is that the SRO that's being in that? We'll find out, you're gonna clarify that, never mind.
Yeah, there's always questions on the police budget and highway generally.
So, okay, under utilities, in the fire department budget, they're paying $700 for telephone. And yet, in the police department, they're not paying anything.
Because it's in communications. That's always tricky.
Can we
Okay.
get rid of the communications department and just put it all into police? Is there anything that the communications department does that's not police related?
It's set up separately in the administrative code to be separate departments, and the communications was supposed to take care of fire, ACO, and
Originally,
police,
that,
originally,
we
but
had
it
a
doesn't
con, we
have-
had a
staff person
constant.
and-
Well, we had, this goes back to when we had a
Yeah.
station here and had
There was
like,
a dispatcher
there was-
and.
correct,
yeah.
and I think three other personnel, so.
Well, we don't have that anymore, so is
No.
it worthwhile looking at changing the admin code to make it a little clearer? I think it'd be easier to follow the budgets along if, the telephone costs for the police department is actually in the police budget and
Right.
all those other things, cause we don't have.
Cause it doesn't,
So the only thing that's in the communications budget for many years has been the computer support, the computers, the office equipment, and
where is the
telephone.
communications?
It follows
Yeah.
right after the
Police.
public safety one.
Like police, the 2505 we were just talking about,
Oh.
utilities, and then that's the total for public safety, which is police, and then it goes into communication.
So the
I'm lost
communications-
again.
the
Say that
commu-
again? I really wish that everybody would use the same format for next year, cause this is
This
ridiculous.
is your police.
Okay.
And then it goes down here, this is the contract
Right.
services we were just talking about.
Right.
Their utilities, this is where they end. And then this is
Oh,
the beginning.
okay, thank you.
And then the
Yep,
next page, it runs off.
right, thank you.
All right, so everything to do with the office is in the communications budget.
Well, maybe for next year when we're meeting about stuff, after this year's budget, we could talk about combining that in the administrative
Yeah,
code.
I wrote it out there.
And we can tackle that in the ordinance committee when we start looking at things in the spring with the sewer, water, and all those
That's a
other
good idea.
things. Cause we have to have public hearings for it, so if we can have,
Public
Multiple
hearings
things.
for.
There would be, yeah, there's an opportunity.
yeah, if we can squish them all into one, then it'd be less for hours.
Great idea.
And I did check on the
And it would take,
terms and conditions, not a water rate increase. Although we had a public hearing previously, we're not required under the law to have one on water terms and conditions. We are required, of course, to have one on water rate, which we should.
All right, so
Let's move on here.
I see communications really hasn't, well, I mean, it goes, I don't know how we hit 5,200, something's happened here with
Yeah,
the
there's
formatting.
there's a math error here.
Yeah,
I mean, if it was this figures, it would be an increase of 4,500 or 20.9%, and it's actually just a few dollars.
yeah. So something, well, look under the supplies thing here, Catherine, you see that where it says 1,710-05? Right underneath that, it says 5,200,
Right.
which is actually
Yeah.
not correct.
Correct, yeah.
So the only increase really that I see is for the telephones, and that makes sense because cell phone fees have gone up.
And we also, the one item we found is that when the staff did the telephone bids, this did not save the town money as indicated and supposed to. It actually costs more. And then this, this is a nice system that will be good for 20 years, but it actually costs more, it didn't cost less. And then the staff forgot to turn off the other bills, so we got double billed, and then I worked on that and turned them off. There were a few that could not be transferred over. There were 3 lines that couldn't be transferred over, like at the transfer station. So we still have a consolidated bill because they're not on the system, they're too digital, they're not digital enough.
We'll have to work on fixing that.
Yes, they're out there on their own. In their new building. So the telephones all through the budget will cost more.
So we're on the animal control?
Animal control.
Yes, so this is where we were going to have the part-time ACO for just a part of the year, and then once in a while when the officer could not respond to the calls. And in this case, that did not happen. The individual that was gonna do it decided not to and left quickly. And then the next one, he has somebody that's interested. I think there was another one after that, but the schools aren't up now. So if somebody's a reserve officer and needs to take the schools to become a patrol officer to cover this, the schools aren't in session yet, so you're on a waiting list.
So contract services and rent, is that
Yeah, what is that?
7505? Is that what we pay to the animal shelter in Waterville?
The 7081 would have been, or very close to that,
7081.
7,000, yeah.
Oh, this. So
But
this
there's
is 10,500, that's
Yeah, there's a
$400
$3,000
increase.
Yeah.
Are we anticipating that because we are going to have more staff time into it, or because we're increasing the fees to the animal shelter?
He's increasing the amount of hours and the time for the ACO, and of course they would get a raise.
Well, what is this notation, unable to hire full-time officers / ACO? I thought we approved that.
You
They
did.
did, they haven't found anybody to work.
They're
with
having an
them.
issue.
Yeah, they couldn't find anybody. One guy was really good, and then he left. And then we've had a couple of others, but the school isn't in session now to bring them to the next level to be the full-time patrol officer.
Okay.
So right now, you could move that and just say it's all gonna be in the police budget. We'll talk about how to do that. I wrote it
These
down.
percentages of increase that seem like a lot to me.
Well, what we've got is the spreadsheet that the police chief uses also includes the area of the salaries way up in the front. And so as you all, you had indicated was not to touch these. So
Right.
I didn't fix that for them by writing on them, because it's calculating all the columns down, and the personnel in the top of the budget is not there. So you're gonna have funny numbers at the bottom.
Which makes sense, but we know that'll be
Right.
fixed once the
Correct.
personnel stuff
Yeah,
comes.
when you get the
Right.
budget.
So we shouldn't even really look at the percentages.
No.
Because that would
Not right now.
change.
Yeah. It depends
So
on how-
can we talk about the elephant in the room? Or are we still on the?
No, you're on the police budget.
I have a question before we
Yep.
go.
I have to leave very shortly, just to let you
Okay,
guys know.
Okay, does the ACO have a telephone that we pay for, and is that included in the communications part of telephone?
No, the ACO is on their own covering multiple towns, so we don't cover their
Okay.
expenses. We
That's
would have a poll.
That's contracted right now.
You're right, we would
correct?
have a poll here, it's pretty typical, they don't use the poll in all the same towns, so we do have, like the poll and the cages and everything.
Okay, and the PPE, do we supply them with PPE as well, or do they need to supply their own PPE as part of their contract?
Oh, yeah, 'cause they don't have supplies.
It's
I
a
think
contracted position, so, but I would think if they were over here and ran into a problem, the police would give them something,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just
But
like
they
they would a
should-
citizen.
They should
They should be
consider
covered
that
by
part
law.
of their contracted.
Yeah, they're contractual,
Contracted
yeah.
services.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, that's the way that would work, but if there was some situation they got into, they'd give them stuff.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we had that covered. Are we on to Public Works?
All right, so,
Now,
Deborah,
there's-
what were
and
you
there's-
talking about?
Well, on the very first page, the chief wants a $10,000 pay
That was
increase,
last year.
5 or 6,000 somewhere. And he wants 5 weeks of vacation, which nobody gets that. Correct, Catherine? It's 3 weeks.
It's 3 weeks for all of the non-union employees. The union got an increase.
But he's not union.
But he's not union, that would be correct.
So-
Everybody, if they're here, over 3 years, like if you're here 30 years, you get 3 weeks.
No.
So is this note here from a residual, you said he reused his spreadsheet from last year, is that a residual from last year? Because we did approve for 2020 budget, we already approved that for this year.
No, I would say not. He says still needs a budget for the officer ACO, the cadet program, and the captain position. He's put in for the cadet program, he put in for the captain position, calling it deputy chief. It's called different things.
So we budgeted last year for the officer and ACO, so that should already be in the payroll part of it, and we also budgeted for the cadet program for last year.
Yeah, he submitted the paperwork for the cadet program again. I wrote a note on the top of it for additional that we already covered
So
that.
these are under additionals, it's not in this budget then, so we're gonna address it when we get to the additionals?
Those are additionals. The increased chief pay 10,000 is not an additional. In addition to percentage increase, and he has told me for 2 years now, he wants more vacation time because he had it before.
Well, but
And I've said that we'll need to change the personnel policy for everyone.
Yeah, we can't really change
You
that.
can't.
And that's a personnel
That's
thing
really
that has
not-
nothing to do with this.
Correct.
So we can
if he
negate
gets
that.
5 weeks, we have to give everybody the opportunity to earn up to 5 weeks.
Oh, of course, we
And,
have a
and
mutiny.
we can't afford to have people out for 5 weeks of vacation.
I don't know any place where you get 5 weeks, at least in the municipal government, maybe it's state and federal.
All right, so we can skip over that because that's personnel and we can't change that with budget.
So the 10,000 is what?
I would consider that an additional request. We did it under the additionals last year,
Yeah, I can just say that,
as well as the cadet program and the ACO officer and the captain or deputy or lieutenant position. You know, we did all of those
That's if we
with
have
the
money for it.
additionals.
well, you've got a lot of people that would like $10,000 added to their pay. I can,
Well, the additional percentage increase would be just the COLA, right? The cost of living increase that everyone gets because he's not union and he's considered a.
right, everyone would
So
get
that
the
goes
same
to all the
thing.
employees and that's included in the number that you come up with the payroll number.
Correct.
So that's
Yes.
not something that we deal with
Correct.
anyway.
Once we get done with
Okay.
this whole thing,
Okay.
we'll figure out what the percentage will be, if
And
anything.
the
Right.
increase will go with the additionals when we get to the additionals.
Well, he's submitted his additionals.
He didn't submit it as an additional. There's no submittal for $10,000 pay increase.
So then-
So let's just
so then
ask
we
him
need
to
to
move that
discuss
to his
this.
additionals.
Well, it needs to be in the additionals. It can't be in the regular budget.
We're
because
asking him
it's
to
not-
move it and
Yeah.
then that's something that can be discussed when we talk about additionals. If we ask him to move that. I hate to do this, guys, but I have to go. I've got to be at a planning board meeting in Elmira to get approval for our property.
No, understandable.
Good luck.
Thank you. I will have my phone on me, so if you have any questions, you can call me.
All right,
Okay, so are we,
we'll keep on going here.
so are we putting the $10,000 salary increase to the addition, moving it to the
It wasn't
additional?
requested as an additional.
So then we need to discuss it.
I'm not gonna approve it.
It's,
I wouldn't
I,
either.
huh,
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't either,
Yeah.
so,
I would, I personally would consider it an additional. We addressed it as an additional
Thank
last
you.
year.
Thank you.
And I think that's where it would go.
well, pay increases are usually handled under the personnel services, right?
Yes.
That's where they fall in.
Correct. And that's why he has it on this page.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, we dealt with it, not necessarily. We voted additionals last year, we voted on
That
that.
was
We
voted.
voted on the safety officer having a pay change that was not part of regular. We voted on.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. And
But
then-
I mean, we voted on other salary type things before that did not get included.
Only
into
because we
personnel.
wanted to straighten out the pays for those positions. I
Right.
agree, the police chief was low.
Yeah.
And the safety officer should have had more because he was doing more. But we
Right.
took care of that and it was done. And then
Correct.
last year, I did up all department heads and then all staff got significant raises and the increase. And so we said, well, this is over with, except for the line people who were still under. And I was going to check those this year, I just can't get into the MMA program yet, because it's not all set up. But
Right.
when it does, I'll run all the staff, the line people, because they were the ones that would be the most affected over this period of time, because
Right.
they're lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I'm
I
still
think it's a
confused.
non-starter.
It's on here under personnel. It's not under the additionals.
It would be in personnel.
So therefore, we need to discuss it.
Let's discuss it then.
No. I'm sorry, but when I first came in 2019, he got a raise. Now we're gonna give him another raise?
Well, he's
And-
asking for one.
We
Well,
have to
we
give
don't-
everybody
we-
one.
It would be absolutely ludicrous to give him a $10,000 raise at this point. Considering everything that's going on, I don't think he deserves it. And I'm saying that on the record. And I don't think that this is the place to discuss it. I mean, it shouldn't be here. He and Catherine should have talked about it together before this budget was
Well,
submitted.
no, this is the way I was told not to touch these budgets and not to do
I-
anything with them, so I didn't.
Well, that's why I say, the chief and you, the chief should have come to you and the two of you talk about it.
I've already stated that there will not be a $10,000 raise. Nobody's gonna
Okay.
get this in this economy and day and age and everything. But the
Okay,
line, I
then we
will
can-
look at the line people to look that over just to see where they're falling, because they were the most impacted. You know, we brought everybody up, but line people usually are the most impacted by budget increases in food and everything.
I agree that it's not the appropriate time to be addressing that, and that we did just address it last year or the year
Mhm.
before. And I would think that it would stay where it is, with the exception of
Of
the
the
yearly
COLA.
COLA increase.
Mhm.
So I would agree with you on that we should not be addressing that at this period of time. I also think that if that did come back to us, that I would rather see it in the additionals, so it's clear that it's an additional
That he's
expense
yes.
versus, and then as far as still needing to be budgeting for the officer ACO, we have that in the budget now, so it would be a question of whether we continue to fund that position, Catherine?
Well, I think he's talking about how we have to put enough money in this patrol officer ACO. See, I've got them in separate lines in the budget, and I've got them in there on purpose so I can watch what their costs are, especially the SRO. And so he wants them all up in that personnel line, all as a lump.
Yeah.
And I really, at this point, can't do that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well,
But
it's
we
not
will
good
at a certain
accounting
point.
practice either.
Well, I
I
agree
mean,
that the officer / ACO is different than the SRO position. The
Correct.
SRO position is a contract position
Mhm.
where we share services with the MSAD 53.
Mhm.
Right.
And we have a contract with them to provide those services. So I agree that should be separate because it has different revenue coming in with it, and however that needs to work. The officer / ACO is an actual officer
Right.
working to provide the ACO services, which is within the department itself. So I wouldn't have a problem with that position appearing up in personnel services because it's an actual officer of the town and not a private contractor providing
Where
services
is it
to the
listed?
town.
I've lost it again.
It is actually in there. The problem is that it's in the ACO budget too.
Right,
So
so it
he
should,
wants them all
when this gets
together.
hired, the ACO budget should go away,
Correct.
and it should just be, so right now, we're like paying
Limbo,
twice, pretty
limbo,
much.
yeah.
You know, it's being paid twice if we had an officer in that position.
Correct.
So what we need to do is actually hire someone for the
Well,
job.
that's just
Exactly.
it.
And that'll
We
fix
made
the
the
problem.
position, we
So-
funded the position, but it hasn't been filled.
Right.
Okay.
So it still remains in the budget, it's not going to be an additional item this year, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Right.
The cadet program was also funded.
Funded, yes.
And I would like an update on that program, where it stands, the expenses, I mean, has it been utilized? If we have to do some cutting of, budgets and it hasn't been utilized, whether it be because schools were in, session or issues with the SRO that we had staffing wise, find out, I would like a status on that report. Status
So-
report on that program so we can find out, do we keep funding them?
Right, so no funds have been utilized when it was talked about in 2019, and they were going to use some of the funds. In 2020, nothing has been done to date. This year, I would say, schools is part of the issue.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm wondering if we continue. I agree that it's a really great idea and a really great program to help kids do kind of job exploration type things and
The fire
learn about
department
it.
used to have a junior fire
Yeah.
department.
Same
so-
idea.
Yep.
Yep, it's a great program, but I don't know if it's appropriate to be having that program in the world that we're in right
Yes,
now,
yes.
based on the fact that it's such a higher risk for our officers to be out there and whether we
Exactly.
wanna have younger people being
Yeah.
brought into that, whether we wanna be doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a note there on the cadet program and whether it should be in there at this time. So that's one of the notes that I have too. But again, you all wanted to see these in their raw fashion, so that's what I did.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. And the captain position, is that in the?
That's in the additional.
That's in the additional.
Yes.
So
Also
we'll talk
called
about that.
deputy chief. Yeah, also called deputy chief.
Okay, so
We'll talk about that.
I'm all
when we
set
get done.
now
You're good?
with that
On
$10,000.
to,
All right, we're in the highway
The
budget
budget.
now.
For
And,
highway.
yeah, I look at that and there's a lot there, but it's really
Oh, good
confusing.
lord.
All right, so the
This-
highway budget had a little formatting issue, but the actual figures are fine. He just has a few extra notes, and when she's made his, plea for overtime with the, per hour cost, that is interesting. And then a couple of other notes that talk about he doesn't know what the snow plowing contract
Well, I have
is.
blank, I don't actually have notes, I have blank spaces.
There are notes there.
The notes at the bottom are supposed to be lined up with
Yeah.
one of these lines somehow.
I tried to fix
Okay.
this and then decided there was no way
Yep.
to do it. So he has just 3 notes, and I will quickly mention them, and then we can leave the blank pages alone. So one note is that his overtime is based upon an overtime rate cost of benefits, and you wouldn't put that in your overtime rate, but Steve has indicated it must be, and I've indicated we don't do that. Note 1, don't know what the offset cost will be yet for plowing, this is true. Note 2 is it costs approximately $16,400 in labor only for public works to mow lawns, and $800, 8,000.
I don't,
Well,
oh, 8,000 without fuel, equipment, or
material.
materials, I see.
So these are just little
Across
notes,
the
so
bottom.
now we know those, we can leave those pages alone.
Alright, hold on. It was $8,000 without fuel, equipment, or materials.
Yes,
So it was $8,400 for fuel to mow the lawn?
that can't be right.
I'm confused.
Without fuel, equipment, or materials, all 3.
Equipment being like, what, stringer, mower blades?
Yeah, if your stringers break and you gotta go get 2 more, because you break them, all of the things that you put on the spools, other materials that they would use, like the mulch and stuff, there was.
Can we just have less grass? Like around our water tanks, can we put like geotextile down and gravel it instead of having grass to mow?
We can check.
I mean, that.
Now, we're talking,
seems like
this
a-
is not the, is this the mowing like the parks and whatnot?
Yes.
Okay,
But
I
not
can't
Manson,
believe-
because they do their own mowing, I think.
say that again?
Not Manson Park, because they do their own mowing.
Yes, correct. I do know that part.
This is the roadside mowing and the
What?
mowing around.
So it's both? we're talking
Well,
about,
I'm just reading what's here.
I know.
Roadside mowing, and then there's mowing mentioned around grounds maintenance mowing. Grounds maintenance to me is around buildings, so is that the town office building, or is that
It's part of
the park?
It's all together here now. So when they go out to do, when Timmy goes out to do the parks that are by the town office, he goes by the town office and works in the little areas. And then we'll head down to the other parks and go to the library and make your way around. Pretty quickly.
okay, I know, I think I asked this question once before, but under the roadside mowing is not the same as bush hogging.
Correct.
Thank you. Keep getting that.
All right, so overall, once we get into 0525, that's mandatory training, which went from 0 to 15,000.
Wait a minute, 0525?
Yeah, well, I think that's a knee-jerk reaction to the fine. We're not gonna spend 10,355 on training, but obviously, 15,000 on training, but obviously we could spend more than we do now. So when you take those lines, which are the operational budget lines for the highway budget, it is an increase of 107,339 or 24.7%.
Say that again,
Say that again.
107,000.
Yeah.
107.
107,339. The increase is really in the 2005, that's big, and then there's increases throughout.
I
What's with the
would
overtime?
like to make a motion that everybody use the same budget form next
Thank
year.
you.
This is ridiculous.
It is.
We don't have anything to go by from last year on this.
On this one, right,
compare
unless we
to.
look at our book, which I don't have mine with me.
So Catherine, you said, I didn't bring mine either. You said the mandatory training last year was 3,500?
It is 0.
They had no funding for mandatory training.
They put no funding in for mandatory training, but they go to mandatory training.
Who?
So is he just?
Public
A
Works?
lot of it's, yeah. Steve had signed up for several courses, they did all get canceled, but he did sign up for courses and sign somebody else up for courses. You could go down to the Bureau of Labor, which we have instructed them to do when it opens, and have free classes in
Right.
Fairfield in all these areas of construction, 0 cost.
Correct.
It's
So-
really good.
So,
Why are we doing that instead of putting in $15,000?
Well, he's put in $15,000 as, I think, a reaction to the fine and everything.
well, but if he can get so
We would have.
mandatory training doesn't tell me what is mandatory, like,
All right, so at this point, mandatory training are all the classes that Donnie Shute as safety coordinator.
are you talking about
certified.
OSHA? So we
Yes, all
follow
of those
OSHA?
OSHA type things. In addition, you would have items like, we sent everybody to a class for safety on chipping and using the chainsaws and everything, that was free. There might be a minor cost now. If we had like a trenching class, or we needed to pay for that, you would have money in there, but not that figure. There may be a few we have to pay for. If they're all working on their driver's licenses, which we paid for, which isn't that expensive.
what do you mean?
Their CDLs, everybody put in, we're just waiting for the process here. We issued the checks and everything.
They need to get CDLs for some of the trucks and to be able to haul the
Right.
equipment.
So they
He
might,
has a class 2 or?
yeah, so they might, an instructor might be necessary for some of them, so you could use the training for that,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but 99%, are you saying that like 95% of their mandatory training they can get through free courses?
Most of them, so I have a question for Steve on what he's thinking of here.
Yeah, me too, because right now I'm thinking chop that down to like $1,000
They need a little bit in case there's a course.
or
like-
2,000.
Yeah, uniform. Steve had signed up for, I think, 3 courses that were like $75 each through local the local roads association, so that's fine.
But none of the other people in Public Works go to training because they're working.
They're working, or there might not be an interest in training, or it might be the fact they have to do the work and, you know, they should
Don't have time
opportunities.
for additional training,
Yeah. Mhm.
learning new things. Okay,
And we
so
do have
that's a
also,
question for me too.
yeah, also for all departments, and this information has gone out, I think Dean did this, and Holly went through every class that existed on the MMA safety training. We have free safety training through our membership. You log in.
Dean does anything that's
Yeah,
free.
Dean did everything, Holly did everything, and I did almost everything, and
Yep.
several others did partial. But we can do like our VDT training for your videos to make sure you're set up correctly. We can do fire extinguishers now. In fact, we're doing some of our trainings this way so we don't have to have so many people together. So there's other trainings, there's at least, I would say at least 20 courses that you can take beyond that
For free.
for free.
Do we,
Part of the dues.
do we need a new addition to the personnel policy that is the preferred way to do the training, and then if you can't get the training through that mode, to look for classes or videos or something like that? You know, is there a way that we need to be saying to the department heads that this is how you need to do your training if it's available?
So
require them?
how are we saying, I'm not sure, are we saying they should use the MMA training, or are we saying?
Well, I guess that's, my question is, how are we mandating this training to begin with? It sounds like it's optional if some people are doing it, like some people are taking advantage of
Right.
all of the options there, and some people aren't doing anything but the minimum.
Right, there,
Is there,
Yeah.
like, if you hold this position, these are the minimum trainings that you need to complete, in a year's time through MMA. These are the required ones that we want you to see, and it should be
But-
a yearly thing. It shouldn't be, I did that 5 years ago. you
yeah, so
know?
the minimum trainings that we have established here are the ones required for the Bureau of Labor, whatever is required for each
Bloodborne
position.
pathogens,
Yeah, there's a lot of
CPR,
them.
Right.
This takes a long
blah, blah,
time.
blah.
What's different now is that MMA couldn't cover all these, and the Safety Works on the Bureau of Labor couldn't cover all these, but right now, you can get everything online. The police department can do everything online except for your actual PPE, because you gotta show it. Your lockout, tag out, your actual one, and your hazard communication global is
Right.
not on the police one, but right now Donnie does not have to go over and train them in all these things and go out night after night to cover everybody, with the exception of the
Because they can
few.
do it themselves.
They do it themselves at their own pace and have to get it done by a certain date. And so,
And do they have to turn over a certificate or something to Donnie as a safety officer?
all right, so,
Who's keeping track of the training?
yeah, so this was something that was being kept track of by the fire chief, the police chief, and I was doing it and delegated it to a staff member.
Yep.
So, this all went amok, so I have all
Okay.
the sheets in my office, and Donnie is requiring before, went amok for a couple of departments, everybody else was good. Went amok, a little bit, which you know about with Public Works. Now, to go to the training by the certain date, they have to turn in all of their paperwork, or they don't get their training and they're going home. You know, we don't have a choice here. It's worded nicely, but they have to do this. So this makes sure that everything is covered. So if somebody, you know, is getting in their training and doing their sheets, but not doing their policies and signing off, we've always gotten them over the years, and it was so good that I didn't check on them after that, because everybody was doing them, but
And then,
two of 14 departments stopped doing it, and then one got caught. Yeah, so now we're back to, everybody's gonna turn them in, just, you know, tell us, and that's fine, and everybody's been fine. But you have to do that check.
so back to this line item here, mandatory training. 15,000 really is probably way over.
Unless there's something we don't know about, so I've got a question
We need
for
to
that.
ask, we
Yeah.
need to ask that question.
Yeah, that one stuck way out, yeah.
And I wanna go backward for a minute. You said something about $107,339. What was that?
That's the combination of all the increases from last year in the operations part of the budget. The major increase.
So that's an increase in the
All-
operations.
Yeah, operations starting under, 0525 mandatory training.
Okay. Okay, got it.
So.
I just had that number hanging out there and I didn't have a comment.
Yeah.
And I'm all set.
All right, so throughout the operations budget of Public Works, there are increases. The major increase is in the 2005, which actually should be 2505, that's how he's got it. Okay, in the contractual part.
We skipped uniforms.
Right, we can do each line if you want. I just was
Well,
saying what the major
I'm
increase
just-
was.
Yes, my husband works for Public Works, but you should see, they look like a ragtag bunch. If they're gonna wear uniforms, then they need to have uniforms.
All right, they all get an allocation of money excluding their boots, which is separate.
Yes.
So they spend the money and we get the receipt. So what you're saying is they're all dressing differently and don't look professional?
Basically, yes.
This could be true.
Does uniforms also cover their safety vests?
No, we buy those separately.
Those are separate.
Yeah, they get either,
It's
depending
like
on
a
the
clothing
department,
allowance.
they get a clothing
I understand
allowance, so
that.
they
I'm
buy
sorry.
like
No,
their
no.
jeans and their socks
Yeah.
and they buy like an outside jacket, a small jacket, depending on the, mittens, gloves, we give them all the safety items.
Okay.
And their shoes are separate because of the cost.
Right, yeah, I just wasn't sure what was actually included in uniforms, because
So
I
you're
have
saying
not
you're
seen-
saying it should be actual uniforms.
Well, whatever it is, they should look like they're all working for Public Works. If they're gonna wear jeans, which last longer, blah, 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 have a uniform shirt, that's fine too, or pick a shirt like you can get at Walmart, Dickie.
Dickie shirts, yeah.
Work
That's what I was
clothes.
wondering when it said uniforms, I was thinking like, do we have a uniform service? Are we
They
getting-
used to,
Oh, I'm
they
sure a
used
lot
to
of
have a
places used to,
uniform
but like,
service.
I always think of like Dickie pants, long sleeve Dickie shirt, or short sleeve Dickie shirt, and they have their name and Public Works on. That's what I think of as uniform, that's why I was asking, is
well,
this
Dean
including?
still wears his
their-
that say transfer station.
Well,
That's the,
you can
that's
make it
just
last.
the, that's the
You
title.
should see his Carhartt coat that he came home in today.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I
I would
believe
have
it.
thrown it in the trash.
I believe it, I've got one of those.
So this is the title
Where
that's,
to-
that's on the account, that's been on the account.
Yep,
Oh, I
okay.
understand that, I was just trying to wrap my head around, that's only $1,000 for the entire
That's what
Public
I'm
Works
saying.
department, and we went through this before with the boots, whether the boot money was enough.
That's
as well.
separate, it's separate.
Right.
Is the boot money because of Dean?
How-
No, each of them, they have to have the.
Have to have safety boots.
Correct, they have to have the proper boots, so that they'll be safe.
Okay.
How many employees, when we're fully staffed, does Public Works encompass?
When you're
5.
fully staffed, it would be,
That's what they're at right now.
right, be 6, because of the new guy,
Six
Yes,
employees.
so it would be 6.
mechanic, yeah, who will start at the end of the month, hopefully.
And in the past, it's been about
It's
250, 300.
$1,000 for uniforms for 6 guys, employees, is $166 and change.
Dean's boots.
That
cost.
doesn't go very far for buying, you can't even get a Carhartt jacket for that practically.
Right, but what
So-
I think will happen is, this is the figure he's put in, but they will all get $200.
$200 doesn't even
Well, cause there's
cover
only
Dean's.
5 guys right there, right now.
I understand, but they'll all get $200, he should have put in for the other one, but didn't.
Right, so I'm thinking we need to increase this line item if we're gonna.
I like to
we
take
have a goal for
5,000 for
6.
mandatory training and put it towards uniforms and put the boots and everything together.
Well, if one department's gonna have uniforms, wouldn't you require all the outside departments to have
well,
uniforms?
Does
Wouldn't
transfer
you-
station also have a clothing allowance?
Yes,
Yes.
and water and sewer has a clothing allowance,
Okay, so everybody has a clothing allowance, all the guys that are doing all the dirty work
yeah.
get a clothing allowance, and it should be the same amount across the board.
It is, except the safety boots are different for different ones depending on, if they're water sewer, they wreck them, so we get them more than the other ones.
How do they wreck them?
How do they ruin their boots?
Oh, you can get in the sewer line and have all kinds of
yeah.
problems, so we have to
Yeah.
replace them
Oh,
more regularly than the other
can
Yeah,
departments.
we
like-
buy them rubber steel toe boots instead of like the
They've had
leather
rubber,
ones?
they've had
I
rubber
don't
on them
think-
too, and they slid
Does
around.
Yeah,
does
they're probably
OSHA,
different things.
too.
Yeah.
would they qualify under OSHA, rubber steel toe boots? I don't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't work when we try,
I
when
would
we
think
try.
if you're getting into a sewer line, you would have like a suit of some kind.
That's what I would say, that's what I would want.
Anyway, aside from water sewer, which we only have one employee in water sewer right now.
Two,
We have two? Oh, he has a helper, okay.
yes.
So, I'd like to see this increased to $250. I think that if you, aside from the boots, if you wanna buy a jacket and a couple shirts, I mean,
And even two
Even that's
fifty,
not gonna get
depending,
you
I
very
mean, like
far.
you said,
obviously we're not buying their entire wardrobe for them, but at the same time, when you're working in a job that you really,
get down and dirty.
you are wearing, literally wearing out your clothes.
So their raincoats are separate, their boots, their steel-toed boots are separate.
Are separate.
If they have the shoes, they're separate. So these items in any PPE are totally separate. This is just for their, their
Coats,
flannel
pants,
shirts,
okay.
their dungarees.
So
socks.
where are the other items? I don't understand why they're not all together.
This is just the way the budget's been divided up. They'll put the other things either in the PPE, like Bernard, or they'll put them in general supplies.
My head is just spinning because
I just had to memorize this years ago.
I
just
know,
memorized
you've been
it.
doing this forever,
Right.
so. And I've done budgets before too, but
And I
like
will
Heather
say-
said, if it's,
And I would say, I don't agree with Steve's numbers, but he has more detail in his budget than most of us.
right,
Okay, $250 for 6 employees is only a $500 increase over what this is.
what about 300? A Carhartt coat, winter coat costs about $100.
Oh, more than that. Unless you go to Rennie's early bird sale.
Right.
You know,
We do go to
and then it's
Rennie's.
gonna cost you $100 with the 20% off sale.
We do go to Rennie's and we
Yeah.
get deals and we have no sales tax. So, and they go to Walmart or Rennie's.
Yeah. So
They
they can
work-
make their dollars go a little further.
Oh, they
but-
do really good.
But I think, if you have to buy, if you're working every day, you need 5 shirts, 5 t-shirts, 5 long sleeve shirts, and a jacket, minimum. I mean, that's what I would think we would try to outfit. Their pants, everybody likes to wear different kind of pants.
Well, most everybody wears
So-
jeans, I think.
Most of them do, but, I don't know.
That's fine.
I find that jeans wear out pretty fast. But even $250 is gonna be tough. I think that that's a good increase to start with though.
So 250 you said?
I think that's enough here.
Okay, so 250 equals what, 1,500?
It'd be
250
$1,500.
times 6.
Okay.
And then when we get to water sewer, we'll have to do the same over there for $250 and transfer
Except they
station.
get, Catherine says,
Well, the way things go,
They
they end
go-
up with more than 200 or
Right.
250 because they have accidents all the time.
Right.
Yeah, things
Okay.
they can't avoid. Things get caught.
So,
or what have
my
you.
question with this 0535 line item that we're at, it says uniforms $1,000, and then it has all these other things, and then there's no number for it, and then there's miscellaneous office supplies $500 under 1005, and then there's $186,050.
All right, so 1005 is
What?
supplies, and so supplies is all the items above it, general supplies here, that equals 186,050. And again, I didn't fix
Are
your
you-
budget.
is that-
So that's just formatting.
everything, that's
It's
5?
formatting.
The block where it starts, Deb, where it starts saying general supplies
Correct.
under uniforms, I'm drawing a circle around that. All the way down to the 1005 miscellaneous supplies, that's all one list.
Yeah, so everything
And it equals,
equals the 186,050.
Okay, thank you.
Can we see that?
And the
there?
same thing for
Does that make
1505
sense?
and 2005 down here and 2505.
Alright, I was trying to find out where that number came from. So that's everything put in together.
That's not including the uniforms.
Correct, because
Yeah.
that's its own $1,000.
So the gravel supplies,
Is
is that road work, or is that, I see catch basins, parts,
So 1005 before was 186,050, and he's kept it the same figure at 18650.
okay.
So these are all the gravel, the increase that went up on the sand and the salt. He's got all the culverts, the cold patching, which will probably go over that figure. But maybe once Higgins Road is paved, it won't, because that's a major
Well, and
problem.
we're gonna do the crack sealer too, right?
Yes, eventually, yes. He's just run out of time on his projects this
Does
year.
crack sealing go in this as general supplies?
Crack
It should
sealing,
go with the cold patch, shouldn't it?
it should be with the contracts. Let me read this quickly here. Crack sealing, yeah, because it's a contractor. It would be in contractual 2505.
2505.
I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
Yeah,
I
so-
see,
So go to 2505 where it says the number and go up 1, 2, 3, 4
Oh.
lines and split up between the
oh my
lines
God,
is crack sealing.
I see it.
Oh.
So,
Good.
the number, okay,
So this is another one, under contractual services is under a circle.
me too,
$218.
218, yep.
Yeah.
You would make a little
2505.
square around that.
Oh my God, oh my God. Alright,
All right, and as we
So-
know, I would have fixed these, but I got accused of changing their budget, so I.
Formatting is a different story.
I was the one that asked the loudest
Of a
to
number of
see
people.
their budgets
Yeah.
as they are turned into you.
Oh, you're seeing them.
And I'm also seeing a lot of things that we're probably gonna make them change, like a uniform form, period.
Which we did have, but people went out, the new department heads went off on their own with their own forms.
But
But everybody.
we can
used to
fix
use
that
the
for
same.
next year, cause we will have forms available.
Okay, so if we go down to, I'm guessing, is this,
What's that
okay,
one
is there
fifty?
there's a 15 January maintenance hanging out there for $33,100, just
Where?
under get diesel.
All right, so 10 dash.
In that, oh, back up here.
20,
Oh,
Can I see
maintenance.
it?
yeah, 10-20 is diesel.
Yes.
Yes, but
So
what,
he's changed the diesel to a higher number here. The gasoline, he's increased from $7,006 to $13,072. The diesel has increased
what?
from
Whoa.
$13,072 to $33,100. I have a lot of questions on my list here.
Oh, these numbers are,
So the numbers are actually, okay, so this $7,006 doesn't belong there, is that the problem? That was last year's number?
No,
And gasoline is 13,000 now?
I should have brought a ruler.
okay.
And there is,
Diesel is 13,072 on dry lines, and gasoline is 706. Okay, so they didn't increase.
So that's the same.
Even I'm getting the lines mixed up now.
Okay, go down one more line.
what's that one, January,
Yes.
15, January maintenance?
That's my question.
What is that?
I think that's actually 15 is, maintenance is 15, so 10/05/15 is maintenance. And this January is some sort of
10/05/15.
formatting problem. So then it's maintenance, so
And maintenance is just below with motor vehicle maintenance?
yes,
Blah,
yes.
blah, blah,
Yeah,
okay.
then you
Is
got
that-
your equipment one, and then you got your building and.
So that 1505, 1510,
So,
I'm getting confused again.
so the diesel is, what does the 33,100 match up to? You know what, I don't wanna spend any more time on this, I would like to have this fixed and then have us look at it, cause I feel like we're wasting a lot of time.
All right, so the overall maintenance is 33,100.
The overall maintenance, what?
Yeah, the overall maintenance budget is 33,100.
Okay,
And
so
then-
what's this 23,000?
23,000
then
would
we
be
have-
motor vehicle maintenance.
And then we have 6,600, I agree with Heather.
That's
He needs to
equipment.
redo this, we're spending way too much time, we have other budgets to work on,
So,
and my head is spinning and it's 6:15.
Okay, so the major increase is really in the contractual cost that is on this out.
the roadside mowing,
Yeah,
Most everything else stayed about the same.
snow removal contract, that's one we need to, last year of a 3-year contract.
Mhm.
So that would be winter 2020 into spring 2021, that season.
correct.
So what are we gonna do? What's our plan at the end of this 3-year contract? Because we've been hearing that the contractor's gonna retire.
At
We
some
only plow
point.
2 roads right now.
At some point. He does not have the figures for that or the plan at this point.
So right now, we're planning on 2 routes. Stan is not gonna give us
Yes.
another route.
He's hoping not, no. He told him he needs to resolve that. I mean, we're getting to winter here.
Nah, either we're gonna do it or we're not. And then-
Right, well, I'm sure Stanley's gonna do something here. So,
Okay.
he wouldn't just leave the town like that, he.
No, I know.
So, Steve needs to bring that plan in as well as a few other items.
Okay, and where is that, please?
It's in the contractual.
Contractual services, it's all in capitals.
2005?
In contractual services, 2505. 'Cause
Okay.
the number is down.
Snow,
at the
I see
bottom.
it, snow removal contract at 100.
So
Last
he's
year, a
increased
3-year
his
contract.
snow removal costs considerably.
Say that again?
He's increased the snow removal cost considerably to 135,000.
From?
I think 76,000, but let me.
Okay, and is that because,
77,826.
Okay.
last year.
Yeah, 76,000 plus the extra for industrial park road.
I almost forgot you were sitting over there.
He's studying all the figures
He's not
here.
saying anything.
He's got last year's and this year's like I do.
So, what, okay, so I guess we would need to question why he increased it, almost doubled it.
He's told me that the towns that have put out contracts have had their prices almost double. I said, just go talk to Stanley. He wanted to bid it out. And I said, well, who are you gonna bid it out to?
Bid what?
There's nobody to bid it out to. So just work with Stanley and get a price. Bring it in. We'll see what we can do.
And is that what he did?
Not yet. So this is something that has to be done pronto here. He's working on it.
Okay.
All right, so the buildings and grounds is
Can we-
almost the same
Yeah.
budget.
Pause for a second here.
Yes.
Yeah.
The snow removal contract that we currently have runs out in the spring. We need to budget for all of 2021, which includes next fall into early winter. So
Correct.
before we approve his budget, we need some numbers
Yeah.
on what he thinks it's going to be,
Oh, of course,
starting next fall.
yes.
Because if
You
we
mean
approve
starting
this.
this fall?
No, next year.
No,
Oh,
we
no,
don't
no.
make any payments until January, so Heather is correct.
So
This
it's
is-
so do we,
This is part of one winter and part of another.
right, so this, okay, so we're talking about winter of 2021 and fall of 2021.
And fall of 2021 won't have anything, so this is all of 2021, so it's nothing, there's no more payments in our budget for this year, because his December payment will get paid in January, it's just the way he has it
Okay.
structured. So we're really talking about the next year, just.
Okay.
I guess what I'm really trying to say is, I'm not gonna approve his budget if he doesn't have a plan or good numbers to tell us
We
what
have
it's
to have
gonna
a
be.
firm number.
I don't want,
I agree.
I think it's gonna be, or it'll be around, I wanna bid if he has to bid it, I wanna see that he has talked to the contractor to see what it's gonna be, and I wanna know what they're gonna be covering, because if if next spring it's like, oh, well, we have to plow 2 more routes and we have to hire 2 more people, seasonal.
And buy
laborers,
another truck.
and plows, it's not happening. So we need to know
No,
that
we need
ahead
the
of time.
plan.
I would say, I agree with Heather, and I think that this budget should be totally redone. I don't think that, I'm looking at something that I don't think a lot of thought was put into. So,
So
I
let's-
would like to put this aside and move on to the other budget.
Okay, we can put that aside, but the buildings grounds is at the end here, and that one has an increase of $200.
Oh,
He just has a minor increase in buildings and grounds.
and what does that cover? Building and grounds maintenance, what is that?
Yeah, it would
And
be.
the maintenance above that is $400?
All right, so the buildings and grounds covers, the little sheds that we have going around to the different properties, light bulbs, for the lights in the parking lot. It's all the miscellaneous items, the flags for Hawthorne Park. It's a whole bunch of miscellaneous items at all these properties that don't have a building attached to them, like the library or the municipal building.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, under that, that is where we should be seeing, an evaluation of the bathrooms down at
Yes,
Hawthorne Park.
that would be exactly
And what the
correct.
cost would be
Yep.
for that.
Yep.
And anything, work that needs to be done with that, as well as the snack shack, because that's a town building.
Yep,
And last I heard, it was gross, needed cleaning and needed some upgrading.
Yep,
And there
that's
was
on-
supposed to be an evaluation done by the CEO and the
And
building-
Public Works, yeah.
Public Works
Mhm.
about those buildings, so that we knew what we were looking at. Because I think we need to be a little forward thinking about planning for, activities for next year with all of this
With the
COVID stuff
COVID,
in mind. And how we
absolutely.
can make it safe in order to have the snack shack open again, if we're gonna have events. People are gonna be pushing to open up more and more things and to have the Little League playing in the spring. And they're gonna be pushing for the park to be used more, and we need to be prepared for that.
Well, they're gonna be especially pushing because they won't have the winter sports likely.
Yeah.
So they'll be very cooped up and really wanting to get going.
Yeah.
This is true.
So we
All
need
right.
to be prepared for that and have a plan in place to make those bathrooms usable so that we don't have porta potties.
So both Public Works and the codes officer are backed up on work, and they both have been reminded that we need to look at the structure.
Do we
they
need to
should
send
be
them a letter?
reminded that it's not just the finance committee that's asking for this to be done, it is the council.
They're aware of that.
And the council, I think, is getting irritated with some department heads who don't see fit. We still don't have the report on the sand that Matt has been asking for. So we're
All
gonna.
right, and the department head is aware of that. Let's get the paving done first. All right,
So I'm anticipating that we need to make some changes in the buildings and ground maintenance
yes.
based on that need.
Right,
And,
that should go up.
are there other maintenance issues that this building has its separate budget?
This would be
correct?
separate, and we
Okay.
have the account library separate, and they're working on that. I did put out a request to all the departments to see what type of training, once we get a little bit more caught up, what type of training would they like? What could help them do their jobs? What beyond the MMA safety that we have, all of our OSHA rural labor trainings, and just our regular discussions that we have, and all the videos that we have, what would they like? And so, nobody wanted any more training, with the exception of the librarian and I, who wanted to know how to maintain our buildings better, because Public Works can't do it, and we understand that we need to not ask anymore. And
We
so we
need-
need to understand how to take care of all this stuff.
I don't think that it's a matter of not asking to have the work done, because it is their duty to do the work. I think it's more a matter of realigning priorities with the department to make sure that the buildings are taken care of little by little, so that we don't have big issues coming along down the road.
Exactly.
All right, well, we would like to get going, and there's things that we would like to do, but I can't. We've tried to figure out how to write the bid specs by going on the internet, and I can do anything to do with roads, and I'm all set because I was a road commissioner for many years, but I have not written bid specs for buildings.
Where
and
is the
concrete
paving,
and
by the
everything.
way?
So this is where both Holly and I are willing to do all these bids for all these little projects that we have, but we need some help here.
What-
Yeah, so that's valid. I totally agree that that's, a good workaround,
Mhm.
but it doesn't negate the fact that the ultimate responsibility for that falls with Public Works, because they are buildings and grounds. And that means buildings and the grounds and the roads.
Yes.
So we both have projects that we would like to do that we do have some funding for with reasonably priced contractors that would pick up, make things look better at both buildings and keep them going longer. But we're just gonna have to have some help, whether we use the engineers that we get an engineer on board and we get some help that way. I've done some things with the contractors, but I can't write bid specs and make sure that our slabs are put in right by the sides of the
Can you
buildings.
give us an example? Well, I don't,
We have a project out front in which the side of the stairs needs to be replaced on the concrete stairs. Now, Public Works used to do these things, and John went out and did that and straightened out all the stairs for us. When I came, your building was crossed off and no one could come in the front because the stairs had collapsed, the front walkway and everything. So there's a little wall that needs to be rebuilt and fixed, and it's undermined. So we need to fix that side. So I need to have the bid specs, so I have a contractor that does this properly.
Can we ask, we have some experienced people on the planning board that are contractors. Are we able to ask for help for them? Like, if you come up with what you think needs to be done, have someone review it before putting it out to bid?
I thought Brent was so busy. I mean, he isn't even in this area. He's actually went up north to work.
I didn't even see, he wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah, he hasn't been at 3 meetings because he's out of town.
Yeah.
He's got big jobs and everything. He goes
Okay.
to Chimbro too for things. So I haven't felt comfortable asking. He used to help me with stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so just so you know, Holly and I do want to take care of the buildings, and we're willing to do this, but looking at the bid specs online, we can't figure out how to make them work
Well,
without trouble.
I have an issue with that. You have enough work on your plate, and so does Holly. Every department head should be giving 110%. And there's one department that's not.
I don't know if I would characterize it as that. I think that there's an overwhelming amount of work to be done by the Public Works Department, and it's so varied. That department covers so many different facets of town, from mowing grass to let's dig up a culvert and,
Let's do bush hogging.
do all of those things. And I
Can you come and move this building for us?
Yeah, I think there's a way that we can try and spread some of that work out by using contractors, like here Catherine was talking about. It's like use a contractor to do the back walkway.
Sure.
And then Public Works is like, well, we can just do that. But they can't, they don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to revisit, we talked before about having a maintenance person for the buildings. Maybe it's not a part-time, maybe it's not a full-time job. I don't think we have enough work for full-time, but we can hire someone 2 days a week to come in and do any of the fix-it things, or maybe
There's a
one
lot.
day a week to do half a day at the municipal building, half a day at the library.
How long is that list,
Do you know what I
Catherine?
mean?
Right.
There's a list,
Yeah,
right.
I think you could make a case for at least a part-time person,
It takes
25
time
hours.
to do like 300 different little jobs where you need different tools.
This
and
would be
different
kind of
materials.
comical. I can see all the women chasing this one person, we need this.
Yeah,
we
there
that,
need to
we
be
need
some
this.
rules about who
Right.
tells that person what to do.
Exactly.
Because
There needs to be like, you submit a work order to
Yes.
this person and
Right.
they hopefully we would hire someone that would know and be able to prioritize that. And it just seems like we don't want our buildings falling apart. You know, we
nobody
don't
does.
want things to be broken for
And we
weeks
want
on
our,
end until
we want our
someone.
roads taken care
Yeah,
of, and
right.
that's a huge, the buildings are a huge priority, the roads are a huge priority. I think prioritizing is also an issue
Yes,
as to what.
Different
we-
people prioritize things a lot.
Right,
differently.
like buildings and roads, to me, are like number one priority. We
right.
don't want the buildings falling down, and we don't want big holes in our roads.
We're ready to go into transfer station.
Yes, let's go to the transfer station. On their structural budget, starting with travel, which is 0, going down to mandatory training down, their budget has gone down $5,000 or 1.8%.
There, give me a number, Catherine.
Let's see, the structural budget, the operational budget from mandatory training down is $271,650.
No, I mean, give me,
What would you like? A
05 dash whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I know where you are.
From 0525, that mandatory training one.
Okay.
It's sort of the beginning of the operationals budget. All the way down to the end, their budget has decreased $5,000 or 1.8%.
So the only change that I'm seeing out of that is contractual and
Correct.
rent and $100 in telephone.
Yes.
New,
So
oh,
the-
he's got the tonnage of all these things. This is
Right.
his revenue?
Yeah, these are all of the costs that will be in place. Donnie's very good about keeping track of all of his costs for each item. So these are all the new costs that will be in place next year in 2021 for the tonnage costs per item. We have really good contractual prices versus some of the other towns, like we have 70, they have 110 or 20. We did a bid that for multiple years that worked out well. Some of these other items are less as we go along, like the different programs here.
What is that is that VW
It
program?
would be HW, Household.
HW,
Yeah.
okay,
Which is really HHW, Household Hazardous Waste,
okay.
but household waste.
And that's the cost to do the program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then,
because that has to be handled in a certain way,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
So-
how they work out.
do we have a contractor doing the brush hogging up at the landfill or the transfer station?
All right, so the brush hogging in town we've been doing, but the wood to be chopped up at the transfer station in the big piles has a contractor coming in that can use it, usually to sell it to a mill. So the costs were outrageous, and Donnie was able to get somebody lined up for later this year that will fit in the budget. So there
This
should,
says mowing and bush hogging.
yeah, that's just what he calls it.
So it's not mowing and bush
It's
hogging
not
at all,
mowing and
it's
bush hogging, what
wood
is it?
disposal?
He's got 400 tons wood pile at $50 a ton. So line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down is where we take care of the wood pile.
Okay,
It costs us $20,000 a year to get rid of excess wood.
Because the wood is not, the brush is separated out, but there's a whole bunch of wood that has paint and other chemicals and stuff
that
on it.
has
You
to be
just can't-
handled differently.
You can't just make chips and give it to people because
Nope.
it's not legal.
And you
No.
can't burn it anymore
You can't
either.
burn it anymore.
Okay.
If you do, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, big trouble.
So that's
All right.
that cost for the contractor to come in and do that.
Yes.
And then we are charging people now to bring those types of materials in, correct?
Yes,
Shingles, items that we have to dispose of through the compactor, the demo debris and all of that, which doesn't go into the wood pile, that's the wood.
Should we
Right.
be expecting less of this to come in because we have said that people need to hire contractors if they wanna like take down their garage or something like that? Or are the contractors still bringing us the
Con-
bins of material?
Contractors are still coming in, but there's less coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still getting people, but the amounts are less. Well, one of the major reasons why that was put on is because in the past, when you could just dump this in here, people would bring in whole buildings.
Yeah.
And then you'd be in big trouble. This is why we had to, the day that the truck, the massive truck brought in, thousands of pallets, we were like, no, we're sorry, we can't take this. We can take pallets, but not, tractor trailer trucks of pallets.
Right.
So we put fees on for different things and had to change the ordinance, we could take
Can we get a
pallets for
list of,
people.
can we get a list of all the fees?
It's in the record.
It's where?
We just approved it in the spring, was it?
Oh, that's right, okay.
That's the new fee.
That's the
schedule
new fee list
with
for
the-
everything.
The stickers,
So you have
everything's in
that.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the mowing brush hogging here is the third one up from the bottom on the
Right,
internet.
what is
This
that?
would be on the facility.
Right, so are we paying a contractor to mow and bush hog at the transfer station? Or is that being done by Public Works?
Some of the outskirts, like the water sewer, the transfer station, I think the reuse building, there's a few, because of the size of the water sewer, those are still a contractor.
So can we get that contractor to also do like the water towers and some of the other places around town?
I think they do the water tower.
So this was the new contract that we approved a
Yes,
while ago?
yes, I can check, but all of these, that used to have the parks in it. So the parks and the little building things in town, the
Right.
smaller things were always done by Public Works.
Right.
But we took the parks off because it was, we took over the parks, but the contractor used to do everything. And then there's been various fashions here of this and what we do and what we don't do. But right now, Public Works does the parks because they will do a good job, and sometimes the contractors cut corners or their
A
equipment
lot of
breaks
times,
down.
some of our yeah,
Yeah, we
They
do
don't
a
have-
wonderful
they don't
job.
have anything invested in the community, the
Yeah.
contractors,
Well-
usually.
Yes and no, but I mean, our employees do a great job of keeping the grass down, but I have also seen the employees go out and mow the grass on Monday just because it's Monday, not because the grass needed to be mowed. And they're out there because it's Monday, and this is what I do on Monday,
They just do
and
it
they're
because-
mowing the grass, like, there's very little growth. I mean, you look at how much drought we had this summer.
Oh, it's been
There was
awful.
a
The
lot.
grass isn't growing, a lot of the grass is dead now, and it's like, are they still going out on Monday and mowing because that's what they do?
Well, there's
on
been a
Monday?
lot
I
less
just feel
mowing.
like there's a lot of
There's a lot
time
less mowing.
invested
say
there
that's
that
a
could be
management.
placed elsewhere.
All right, there's a lot less mowing this year than in prior years, for sure. There was one other drought type year. So, right now, Public Works does the parks, they do some of the little things in town, but the big areas, like the airport is a contract.
Is the mowing
The
contract.
water and sewer places are a contract. The transfer station is that big area, so that's.
Is that a contract?
Yes, that's under that one contractor.
One contractor,
Yeah.
but it's broken out by
Yes.
the
And
departments,
charge
okay.
the departments.
I'd
to
like to
decide.
see if that contractor will do the parks next year as well. I think it just makes sense. We might get better pricing if we have like a full week's worth for them every 4 weeks. Or
We can
every-
check on
You know what I
that.
mean?
So some years when the contractors have done the parks, it's been fine, and other years, there was nothing but complaints from prominent families in town.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not
complaining about the
prominent,
grass
but I
being
still
too
complain.
long Is,
Huh.
I said, complaining about the grass being too long is just really not a priority in my mind.
Okay.
All right, so
Next.
the transfer station budget was a $5,000 decrease, the recycling budget was a $200 decrease, or
So am I-
2.7.
Am I seeing the grand total of $662,185
All right, that's the.
on the
full-
second page?
that's-
Recycle and solid waste.
All right, so this is the total of the original budgets for both. You get your.
That's what I'm-
Recycle is the independent budget, and when you add
Yes.
recycle and transfer station together, you get solid waste department.
Right,
Yes,
but I'm saying the transfer station,
Mhm.
which includes the recycle,
yes,
their budget is over $500,000.
Yes, it used to be over it used to be almost 800,000, so things have gotten better. That used to be the largest budget in town, and now it's not remotely.
So
Well,
they
I
don't
mean,
have-
I see that Donnie has tried his best to keep the costs down. It's the amount of money. I mean, I think it needs to be said for the general public, because I don't think the residents think about it all the time, like we're looking at this stuff all the time. That's over $500,000
Mhm.
in tax dollars.
Yes,
Throw stuff away.
it is.
Right, so,
Mhm.
okay, are we moving
So
on?
the recycling budget only had a decrease of $100 in advertising and $100 in heating.
Correct.
Does this also include the reuse building?
Yes and no. The the electric bill for the reuse building is paid from here, but the reuse building has its own little special revenue account where the monies go in when it was open. There would be all the donations. And then you would have a few miscellaneous expenditures like paint and stuff that wasn't donated. The only item that's charged to the recycle budget for that is the electrical bill, and it has to be because it's too difficult to charge that to a special revenue account.
So we don't have the recycling center open, or the reuse building open right now.
Mhm. Yep.
We don't.
It's not open?
It hasn't been open,
No.
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 So, but we still have, an electric service turned on there?
Yep.
But we are not heating it, correct?
Correct, there's no heating system there. It will be on for like April through the very beginning of October, the end of September, depending on the weather.
And we don't need to have that electrical, cause there's a base monthly fee for
Yeah,
electrical
it's a
service.
it's a minor bill.
Okay.
We do go in and bring in, the reason why it's been left on is one of the major reasons to have the
They charge you
reuse
more
building.
to.
Exactly,
Yeah.
if you turn it off, it
Well,
turns
I go to
on.
Handbook, and
I
not only
don't
that,
actually
there's
have-
codes, so if
Yeah.
there's code updates, then you have to update before they're
Yeah,
gonna reconnect
exactly.
you.
We leave it on, because it is more to go through all this process, and then we don't wanna have any issues, as Pete has indicated. And second, one of the major reasons for the reuse building was to help out families that got burned out or had an emergency or got
Right.
kicked out or what have you. So we need to have the lights on going to
Be
get
able
stuff.
to go in it, okay.
Yeah.
That was my
So-
next question about that.
But nobody can leave stuff there now, because there's no one to take it into the building.
Not unless, we talked at the last recycling meeting about, once Donnie got his building all set up and all this stress went away from trying to get CMP here, who did not show up on time, that he would then set up a schedule in which people could come and drop things off. And I think that can still work. Unfortunately, our main person who ran the facility, Dina, passed away. So she was gonna go down there and get the things, 'cause she loved doing it.
Yep,
So I think he can still do that, but we have specific times, somebody would call up, make an appointment to bring things in. We would leave all the stuff in there, and then we would start bringing up our collection again for when we open up next year.
Library?
Library. All right, the library, starting at that 0520 travel there with the train, what would be mandatory training, but called training conferences on the library one. Going down to the end of the budget is a decrease of 8,157 or 11.3%. And the main area there for the
Sorry,
decrease.
please say that again, decrease
Wait,
of
wait, wait,
8,000.
Yeah, it's a decrease of 8,157
Okay, thank you.
or 11.3%.
decrease.
Yeah, and the reason why it's a decrease is if you look at building services 15-15 in the middle of your operations budget there.
Mhm.
Building services, she's going to use the capital reserve account and put monies in there and use it instead of having all these projects in the operations budget. And that is partially because trying to get contractors this year has been a mess. So if it's in the reserve account, she won't be affecting the budget by having the monies, go to surplus or having to carry them over and all
So
that.
she can just, if she has a project, she can just go.
Get approval to get in the reserve account and do the project.
We don't have to go through the bid process or anything.
Depending on the size of the project.
Well, I'm saying smaller projects.
Yeah, smaller ones, she's probably fine.
Good.
And we put money in the reserve account in a different spot.
Yes, the reserve budgets are in the capital part of the budget, so she has a request for allocation there.
So about $11,000 is
Uh,
what's missing from this
No,
budget?
she decreased it because she's got quite a nice buildup in the account,
Okay.
which we went over at the last meeting.
Do you know how much offhand what that is?
No, I don't see, because
Okay.
I've got so many figures and so many
Yes,
accounts, I don't
that's fine.
memorize them anymore.
Nope, that's fine.
So that's the major
Well,
change, she's got some pluses and minuses here, but, she is the only department head that did the analysis that I asked for on what her priorities were for her operations.
Yes, I saw
Did
that.
A really good job. They all just were so busy, they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, she did a superb job. Oh,
But she's a good writer too. You have to remember, some of the departments are different. Some are hands-on and some are writers, and so you would get a better budget from a writer.
I'm sure if we throw Holly out there and ask her to deal with sewer lines, we might not have the best sewer system. So put the right people in the right spot.
I don't really see where we need to question
It's pretty thorough.
anything on this budget, considering there's a $8,000 decrease.
So another, if we go back to our original line of questioning with the other budgets, which we kind of skipped over the transfer station and their PPE type stuff.
Oh, okay.
And we needed to make an adjustment in there for the transfer for, maybe this is different.
Where are you looking?
Well, I'm just thinking, we made adjustments to the Public Works Department for, their uniform, allocation. And then we
Right.
needed to do the same thing in the recycling and the transfer station for those employees as well. But we didn't do that.
And
So-
does that-
It's under uniform,
Yeah,
$600.
Both of them are under the uniforms.
So how many employees does the $600 allocation? Cause I know some are in the transfer station and
Yeah.
some are in the recycling.
3 in the transfer station, 2 in recycling.
3 and then 2.
So it's a $200 each.
So we need to add another $100, no, I'm sorry, $150, cause we said it was $250. And we need to add $100 over here.
So, oh, you're, okay.
It's 200 each, so 100, so 100 there.
So,
Does that make sense?
They all should be.
Oh, there it
the
is.
same.
Okay,
That
so
way,
yes.
it's $250 per employee, so uniforms becomes, $750 in transfer station, and then it becomes $500 in recycling.
Okay.
And their PPE is not on a line item here anywhere. Does that come out of the general budget? 'Cause you said it's all purchased.
It looks like
They
it.
would come out of their general supplies, however, I'll be frank, Donnie's able to get a lot of free stuff, so.
Oh my God, he is so good at that.
Okay, so do we not need to,
He probably would put it under
General
supplies.
supplies.
Yeah, general supplies.
Yeah, it's under that's where we charge it to for everybody, general supplies.
so do we need to increase these line items?
No, he's all set.
Okay,
Believe me, he will show up with things.
alright. And then same question for the library, although we don't think of them as like, they're not responding to hazardous things and stuff like that, but they do have
But they
a
need-
number of people coming through, and do we have, materials in there for our employees as well?
We're all
Yes.
set. They're in
General supplies,
General
printer,
supplies.
paper, library and office, building supplies, toilet paper, hand soap, trash bags. I don't think is that in any of the other budgets?
She's just very detailed, but yes, they've been buying before the grant, they've been buying their,
The
gloves.
PPE.
And they got a lot of masks free, and I gave them a whole bunch too, that we got.
Under general supplies.
Yes, general supplies that they
Okay.
pay, for the ones they pay for. Yeah, they went to to Hawthorne Park and got a whole bunch of free ones. And then, one of the items I didn't mention is that CMLME donated hundreds of, masks, so we got those. So this is why we were all stockpiled when finally we heard that there would be some monies available. We had spent a lot of money and we got all kinds of donations.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
I'm glad to hear that we're in good shape with that, because it's gonna
And
be
it
an ongoing.
looks like everybody is aware and budgeted for that.
Yeah, I don't think that we'll have any issues. The problem will be, and we'll still be okay, the problem will be if the transfer station has to start using their, the suits and all that stuff.
Their
That's
hazmat
very,
suits.
yeah, that's very expensive, but because of the garbage and contamination, but I perceive that will not happen.
Okay. Are we going
You mean
on?
as a result of COVID?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Because everything would, things would be contaminated and stuff. So your last budgets are water sewer, which are set up differently. We would have a contractor here, so that would impact the budget. We would need, a
Who did all
water.
the neat little, who has such nice penmanship?
That's Annalise's writing. Annalise wrote on the budget for Chris. They worked on it together.
And it's
So
minuscule too.
She's an engineer, she's used to writing small things.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, the gas increased a little bit because we have a second truck?
No, it's for two vehicles. They're looking at the cost that they paid to date and think they need a little bit more than 3,000. So both gas trucks. And then
Okay.
the diesel, they're
That's
saying that they don't use
Just
as much.
used for the backhoe and the
Yeah.
excavator.
So they went through and like Donnie adjusted things as necessary up and down based upon their expenditures, like I would do, projecting ahead and everything.
And so, what's the up or down on the water department?
All right, I never got to that point because
Okay.
we had several citizen complaints at the same time upstairs, and so I went out and got into that. The figures that are at the end don't reflect the actual personnel costs in there, so don't try to compare them.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they need a new laptop,
Yes.
okay?
Where are you seeing
I'm
that?
looking at 10
She's looking at the notes.
60.
10, 6, oh, that,
Yeah, when you go out in the
You
truck,
know-
we've had the same laptop for a number of years that you put the meter reader program on, and it's just time to budget for one before we have problems.
Okay, so, and then it says M&S administration for office supplies, want to separate out administrative office supplies out of customer account. So should that be a debit from that?
So what they're saying is that they want to separate these into two accounts. This is the way Annalise would do this in another town, she has 13 towns. So she's saying that the office supplies shouldn't be in the customer account up there, but they've added in the laptop, so it went up anyway.
Right, but I'm saying, that's a really expensive laptop if it's a $3,500 laptop, because if you're taking $1,500 out of the $7,500 and putting it into a different account,
But there's
plus
other,
it's going up $2,000.
right, but that's all of our materials and supplies for all customer accounts on the whole, on the whole system here. So there's a lot of other items that will go in there. She just wrote a note about the laptop and taking out some monies here.
Right, but I'm looking at the overall change. In 2020, our current budget is $7,500, and that includes administrative office supplies and the customer supplies, correct? For this year.
that's the way I read it.
And then next year, they're saying it's gonna be that total amount plus $2,000 because there needs to be a new laptop. And we're gonna add in another
$1,500.
$1,500 because we're separating out those costs But it doesn't look to me like those $1,500 in administrative office supply costs got taken out of the 7,500. So it's an overall increase of $3,500
Right,
for supplies and the
Right.
laptop.
yep.
Follow me?
Yes,
Good.
actually, I did follow that.
So
When they
the-
separated out, that 7,500 should have dropped down
To six.
$1,500.
So they've
Right.
also decreased in this, the materials and supplies for distribution.
Nope, that's the same at 20,000.
Yeah, that's not a six, it looks like a six at 20,000.
No, it's the 7,500, that
So,
15.
Can we just have that be a question for
We
Annalee?
can, yeah. There are a number of other expenses in there, but I'd have to look at the detailed list.
I think
but-
Heather is right, though. That
So, the
1,500.
way I read it, if they keep the other expenses the same, the customer, M&S for material and supplies for customers should be $8,000.
Correct,
And then it should be $1,500 for the administrative office supplies.
yes.
That
I know
would just
what-
include a
yeah.
$2,000 difference
Mhm.
for a new computer.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but what we've been told by all of our associates is that our budget is so small compared to all these other water departments, so that may be part of this too.
Well, it might be small, but do we need more money in that account is, I guess, is my question, like materials and supplies. Is this like billing? Is this paper and envelopes to issue bills?
For the
Statement?
for the office supplies, yes, that's, the paper that we buy, it would be all the envelopes, computer ribbons, for the computers at their place. There's a whole variety of items that are in there,
Their
it's not
computer
just,
still has a ribbon in it?
yeah, yes. Good Lord. We still have a typewriter too.
Hey, you
So
can't beat those.
if that gets pulled out and put into admin office supplies, what's left for customer supplies?
I will get the detailed list and look at that.
Okay.
I should have brought my highlighters with me. Okay, initial request,
Other than that, there's not.
what is,
Contractual operations is a big increase, but that's because we don't have an employee doing it, because we have Oliver.
We would have Oliver, but that's where we have to decide on what we're gonna do with the personnel and everything. They're saying that's what would be their cost for the year, I'm not saying that is what will be their cost for the year. so
Okay, that's what they want.
That's what they want, yeah.
Cancel pagers, cell phones.
And then all the bonds will not be the same, but they will be close.
Okay.
okay,
Adjusted due to contract operations, capital improvement. So is this where we think we can take the,
Well, this is where, Annalise is thinking that to pay for the contractual operations will reduce these items down here.
the capital improvement?
Yes.
Because it's more of an ongoing than coming up with big funds for projects?
We do have quite a good, good amount in the reserve account, and if COVID hadn't hit, we were going to request to bid out the standpipe painting, but we wouldn't have gotten anybody. Even if we had bid it out, that would not have happened. They'd be coming from out of state.
all right.
So that's next year's project. And then we can put a little bit of money in for those, but maybe budget for capital projects in general rather than the standpipes.
The current, okay, so the current budget, they're asking for less money?
Oh, no, remember the personnel's not added in.
Well, no, I'm looking at like the capital improvement.
I think that they're trying, I personally would think you'd need more in there, just by the way
Well,
things are
I'm
going.
thinking if this year's budget for capital improvement was water loan the Grove stand 40,000, Phillips Corner stand 40,000. And now they're only asking for 20,000, so that doesn't,
Well, it could be that we have enough in the account that we don't need to keep putting that much in
No,
each year.
that's a general, it's for capital projects, both water and sewer during the year. So it doesn't go to, the reserve account.
right, so shouldn't those numbers be at least as much as this year?
Well, I think what they're doing is they're trying to balance out the contract operations. It
Okay.
seems to me that, see, adjusted due to contract operations, so to add in and have the contracts to cut down on the capital.
So keep the budget the same.
Yes,
by
to try to
Just
manage,
getting
move the
paid
money around.
instead.
which we would have to do something, we just can't, keep
Well, it's a
increasing costs.
I found a $10,000 change overall
Yeah,
in the budget, which isn't a
It's-
whole lot when you look at it being a $613,000 budget this year.
right,
And that's without fixing the, thing that we were just talking about, and that does include the contract operations being at the 57,600, even though it's not, they're working. Overall, there isn't a big change there though, aside from the contract operations though, right, Catherine?
it looks like just, it either stayed the same or
Yeah,
they've
they've adjusted the
adjusted
things.
where money went.
Well, remember, I'll be going through all these just to check them against the trends and everything, more so, I've already done it once, and so, but you wanted to see them as they were.
Right.
So then I'll be going through it, now, if items really need to be changed, they're gonna have to be up and down.
So sewer, this has, more supplies for the plant. And.
Which is reasonable, they've done a lot of upgrades already.
Yeah. Sewer system flushing maintenance plan.
Okay, under telephones, it was $1,200 this year, but next year it's gonna be $500.
Yeah, they're saying.
They're gonna use their private cell phones.
Yeah, that's what she says. No pagers,
Well, I would, if I were working in that department, I probably would use my cell phone because you have to be on call 24/7. You don't wanna have to worry
Do you wanna
about.
drag your personal cell phone down into a sewer with you? 'Cause
No.
it's in your
Well,
pocket
no.
and, I
No.
mean, cause they're working, they're dirty, they're on the phone, I wouldn't wanna use my personal.
yeah,
phone for
I
that.
didn't quite agree with that.
I mean, I understand the convenience part of it, where I have two phones to keep track of, but you can always forward calls from an office phone to a personal phone in the off hours or something like that.
And we can do that with our system too.
Yeah, so like after 5 PM, the call gets forwarded and the phone gets left at the office or the water building for charging or something, or.
Okay. So, are we saying we'd rather they didn't use their personal cell phones?
I think what I've got to circle and check into that. I just think what's gonna happen is what happened before, they lost their cell phone down in the sewer system.
That was Dean.
It's been more than Dean.
Oh, has it? Yep, we had to get Dean a new phone. Cause he bent over, he forgot. He always had a flip phone,
They were small, slippery.
put on the belt, really. Then he had to go to a smartphone, he had no choice in the matter, and he forgot it was in
And it
his
just wasn't
pocket, and
that smart.
he bent over that hole, boom, right into the
Yep.
It
2
wasn't
feet
that,
of water.
it wasn't that smart, that.
Nope.
So this has, in this budget, this has the sludge reserve down to $20,000, but that's pending So that's something we need to watch for
Yes.
before we make any final decisions in December.
Reduce due to
Yes.
discussion with rural development.
This is the sludge removal letter that we sent to the rural development
Right.
to try and not have to pay $80,000 every year.
Oh, that's the USDA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she thinks that we will have to pay an amount, and at first they had 30,000 and then decided, we'll put in a different amount.
I think USDA is probably gonna want us to put in more than 20,000.
Well, the thing is, we've built up this huge amount, and I said we're asking to have some of it taken out, so we don't wanna budget any more.
Oh, that's right, we have what, like $800,000 sitting there.
A lot.
We wanna
Yeah.
leave 600,000 and use the other, for capital projects. I mean, we can sign a certificate to, USDA, we'll use it only for capital, which we would
I'm
anyway.
going cross-eyed here.
All right.
Additionals. Do we want to hire Sal and Ben again?
Who? What?
Oh, no, that's not, you got us the first time, but not the second time. Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, was it?
Last year we went through this and it said the position that says Sal and Ben. I'm like, who are Sal and Ben?
That was
I
funny.
don't know, they've been working for us.
Meaning
It's
salary and benefits?
Yes, yeah. So this is one of the additional requests from the police department. Non-union deputy chief position within the PPD does not include benefits.
I say no to all of the additionals requested by
Would
the
have
police department.
administrative.
We just don't have that kind of money. $70,000 for a deputy chief. When I
I-
have a sergeant,
I'm gonna read and explain some of this, just if somebody's watching, because they don't have this material in front of them, then they'll
True.
understand what we're
Okay.
talking
Yep.
about. So the request is for a chief position within the police department. The amount requested is $70,000. Reasons for the request would be to create a new non-union deputy chief position within the PPD. Does not include benefits, although up here it says it does, so that would be a question.
It does,
It doesn't, okay. So benefits would be an additional, which is like $10,000 or $12,000 a year.
last time I checked, it was 23,000,
Oh,
but it's also the cost.
Insurance and everything.
right.
Okay, so this position would help make the police department more effective and efficient by having a deputy chief command position. Person will become second in charge and will have administrative and operational duties. Command structure of the department would then be chief, deputy chief, sergeant, full-time patrol officer, and then reserve officers. It's expected the person would be selected for this position, enhancing teamwork within the department and other departments by working collaboratively on various projects. Professionalization in the PPD, handle various projects assigned by the chief. Would not save money, but would help improve the department and be grounded and be groomed in administrative responsibilities and be able to take command when the chief is not available. So that is the background information that we have on the request. Deborah, you have some input on this?
And I don't feel that we are in a position to create another position for $70,000. There's still an officer's position that hasn't been filled.
Correct.
And we're a small town. We're not Scarborough or Saco or I don't feel that we need a deputy chief.
Okay.
I think the sergeant, the way it's set up now, chief, sergeant, and full-time and then reserve is appropriate for the size of our community.
Okay. Pete, do you want to chime in on it?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
I think given the uncertainty of our budgeting over the next couple of years and the fact that we do still have a patrol officer position that's unfilled that we haven't been able to fill yet, I don't think it makes sense to put money into the budget for another position at this time. And I don't know that we would be able to find anybody to fill this position right now.
I think that's an issue.
I think that's the biggest thing is hiring is gonna be very difficult over the next few years for the police department because of the lack of training that's available. The police school, has that reopened yet, the academy?
They had some courses at the college, and then I think they got canceled, so I don't think that the academy
Okay.
is reopened
So
yet.
there's like nobody new coming into
Right.
the line. So at this time, I would agree that it's not the time to be adding additional positions to the police department. The next additional request form is animal control officer truck, $25,000, one-time cost for a truck to last several years and properly maintained. Police department will be taking over animal control responsibilities with an additional officer. It's requested we purchase a truck for these duties. Will mitigate infectious diseases that can be spread to humans if the animal is transported in the cruiser. This is in line with goals of the department. It will mitigate safety issues for the officers. A truck will make transportation of animals much easier for the ACO, and will not save us any money. Input, discussion.
That's the position that's open, correct?
This is the position
The-
that's open, the ACO/patrol officer.
That we can
position.
fill.
Correct. We've not been able to find a candidate suitable yet.
He has somebody that's interested,
But they're waiting to take classes in order to qualify?
Yes,
Is that-
we've done part of this. We did, the physical, we've done on the last one. We've done the physical and the psychological, and now we're waiting for the class.
Okay. So it's in the pipeline, in the process of hiring someone for this. I don't think we need another vehicle to maintain, and it's not like when the ACO traps animals, they're wandering around in the cruiser, they're in cages, and we have containers to transport them.
We have four cruisers. One of those could be designated to that open position, patrol person / ACO.
Right.
Many times, many times I see two cruisers sitting in the parking lot being unused. So I think would be more beneficial for us to use one of the vehicles we already have than to go ahead and buy another one.
One of our cruisers is also an Explorer, isn't it? Isn't there an Explorer out there?
Well, three of them now are the same.
Three of the
And then
Explorers.
one is the police chief's
Sedan.
car, the
Okay.
latest sedan.
Yeah, I think that they can, with the number of traps and things that we have, it's certainly, nobody should have an animal running around. And if they are properly doing their job as ACO, they're gonna have those protective things in
Right.
place, for that.
See, I will say, the police chief is adamant about this infectious disease part, but I just don't, I'm sorry.
The only thing I could
I've
think
had
of is
ACO
rabies.
ACOs for almost 40 years, and I've never had an issue.
Yeah, I think rabies is the only thing you.
I think that's the
that I
only
can
thing we
think
need
of.
to worry about, and I'm sure the ACO would be well versed
Yes.
in how to avoid that,
Right, right.
or in how to deal with it, so,
So I would be inclined also not to recommend that as well.
okay.
Last additional, right, last one?
Yep.
Last additional request form is for the Police Explorer Cadet Program. Amount requested is $3,000. Create a new Police Explorer Cadet Program to attract students that may have an interest in law enforcement as a career. Would be a feeder program to become a reserve officer and ultimately a full-time police officer. It would build leadership and responsibility skills for the students who enter the program. It would also build relationships between the students and the community. Explorer students would be able to assist other departments and enhance teamwork within the community. Expected that the explorers would be able to work in teams patrolling the parks and various parts of town, be able to report back to the patrol officers on duty. Police recruitment across the country is down, and while this not costing much money will help attract and retain qualified, I think there's a typo, qualified people for the future needs of the town of Pittsfield. Discussion.
So it's a really nice idea.
Under the
But under these
COVID,
conditions-
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
He already has the money in his budget now. I wrote a note at the top, previously approved and in the budget, not implemented yet. So the $3,000 is in his budget, broken down
So then
between several accounts, uniforms and a couple of other accounts.
so then this doesn't even need to be discussed because it's already there.
I don't believe so, because the funding's already built into the
Built
budget
into
that's
this year's.
carrying over.
Right, and he hasn't used it, so he
It
can carry
hasn't
it
been
over.
implemented, and part of that might be because the schools have not been in session. Part of
And
that might
everybody has to
be-
wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart.
Part of that might be staffing, that we're having a hard time, fully staffing our police department, and then
Right.
having that staff that we do have stretched a little thinner by starting a new program.
Right.
And we've also had, difficulty maintaining the SRO relationship with the schools,
Correct.
which I would see the SRO officer as having this role to build in this program. And I think that if we find, the right person to go and be SRO again and to fill that position, I do see this as being a way that they can implement and, have it be an Explorer program for the police department. But I don't think we need an.
I
additional
absolutely agree.
No, these were wonderful programs and programs.
It's
back in-
nice if you can do it, but under the current situation, he already has the money, we don't need to put any more money.
Yeah, that would be correct, and hopefully school will be in session, so that
Yes.
continues to be. All right, so I have a variety of questions, mostly in one area.
So we don't have any additional projects from Public Works.
No, there were no additional requests, and the capitals I just work on myself anyway.
So you'll bring up the capital improvement plan.
You'll get a
at
whole
some point
big
later
plan with everything together with all of them in there, yeah.
Okay.
And there weren't that many this year either. Most people realize that there just isn't any money.
So you're going to do the recreation,
Yeah, I'm working on the recreation, I have that done, I did, the cemetery, I wanted to talk to Pete, he has just had a difficult time recently, so, I left him alone for a while, because he's had so many funerals, they all come at once. And so his last one's done today, he'll rest up and then I'll go over his budget one
yeah,
day.
that's gotta be hard.
It is hard. I mean, he's burying people that he taught in school, this is very hard.
Yes, and he's a Vietnam War vet with all the issues that come along with that too.
All right, so
So-
what I normally did last time is you invited department heads in for a meeting. However, this time we sort of just did the budgets here. So do you want to set up a meeting and meet with anyone, or do you want me to have them write down all the answers to your questions?
The only, I don't feel the need to meet with the department heads, but my own opinion. I just think that the public works budget needs to be reworked by the, director or foreman or whatever the title is, with all the questions we had. I think all the other budgets are well within, some budgets were cut, some stayed the same, and others had what I consider minuscule increases. The only thing we're really missing is all the personnel
Correct,
stuff.
which will be put in at the end there.
Right.
See, if I to go and put in all of the costs and the benefits, and then I change the amount of what the salaries are, then you gotta change everything, so I gotta wait till the end and put that all in.
Right. So
So-
how do you feel about that? Am
I
I missing
thought-
anything?
No, I thought we had some, considerable questions, for the Public Works Director. And I don't know if that means that we wanted to come back to this committee to be able to ask questions, or if we want the full council.
He would have to sit right there and
I-
talk to us.
Yeah, I would like to see, all the questions about the budgets kind of ironed out before they go to the full council. I think we could have a more
Oh.
streamlined.
Oh, absolutely, we
discussion.
can't take this to the
All these will
council
not-
yet.
All these
No.
will not be questions when the budget's in the book at all.
Right, yeah.
We need to answer them first.
Yeah, so I
Should-
guess I would like answers to the questions. We had the training, we adjusted the uniforms, the
Right.
snow plowing plan
That's
is the
the
big
big one.
question. And the report on the buildings and grounds, especially the buildings down at the park. Everything else I thought was pretty much in line with what we expected, aside from the questions of the water enterprise and maybe sewer.
We
with
didn't,
the-
we really didn't have a lot of questions. I thought most
Well,
of
the
the
questions
budgets.
were like Annalise's numbers on some of the things.
Right,
It wasn't
but
like
I mean, it
why are you
wasn't-
doing this question? It was
Right.
the number part. And then recreation and cemetery, we also have airport.
Yeah, but those are all the ones that I'm doing the recreation and cemetery now. So I put that in
And
with
those
all
are all
the
the ones
administrative
that-
ones, and I
yeah.
will do all those, and as you know, we're very frugal.
We can
so-
do it in a workshop,
The-
do all of the administrative ones in a workshop, and then,
The other thing I was gonna ask is the rec committee was going to be doing an assessment for you of the programming and the buildings and the parks.
Right,
Are
but-
they gonna have additional, items that they bring to us outside of their operational budgets? Like, I know there was an issue of the graveling down at the Leggy Field at one point, and we said, not this year because we made so many other changes and we'd look at it again. It hasn't come back, so did that get fixed? There was like a lip or something
Yeah,
that
so,
needed to
we,
be?
a volunteer went down with some materials and fixed that.
Okay.
Where
And
was
then there
As
was
a temporary solution for a couple
right,
of years.
there was an issue, the gravel in Leggy Field, the little, baseball diamond had like worn away, and there was like a lip where if the ball skipped along, it could like catch it up
Oh,
or
down
something.
here, yeah,
Hawkeye
okay.
Park.
I'm a little punchy, I've been
Um,
up since 5 AM yesterday, so,
And then there was a question about the fountain down at Fendler Park being maintained and or closed out properly, and whether or not that needed some work done to it. Yeah.
Yep, so the recreation committee is spending all their time making sure the recreation programs run appropriately here. So this has been a big thing for them too.
and we just formed that really
Football.
big committee.
Right, right. I think they've had 2 months now. They've probably had at least 2 meetings.
They've had 3 meetings and then they didn't, I haven't been notified of another meeting, but I figured that frankly, they were gonna end up being coaches on some of the programs, which is what's happening.
And school just started
To get everything all going, and they just, as Ben said at the meeting, when I talked about, you know, how we didn't pester you on the budget, he said that that would be inappropriate for them to make up a budget at this point, because they don't know.
Right, right.
But they may have some, you know, I will remind them, they may have some items that they want to add in that we could look at. They were talking about the specialized, programming, when you can do the online that, like Portland and, my former town, Topsom, had this. There's a few other towns, it's beautiful, if you have a full-time department. So they were talking about raising money for that, or, you know, they have some items, but I think right now, getting these rec programs up is the big thing, because we're right in that period when they're starting now, this week.
The other thing for Public Works is last year we had asked for a full assessment of all the buildings. And the Pinnacle building was one that we had questions about. It's technically our building, even though the Pinnacle Park group uses it and the ski club uses it, but it's technically our building and our responsibility to maintain.
All right, so the minor maintenance is done by, the Pinnacle Ski Club, because they're in there and things need, if they wanna get things fixed or move around stuff in the kitchen or paint things. But if the roof came through, that would be the town's responsibility, the major items. We do go in and do the fire extinguishers, and we do check around the building. But frankly, the volunteers have done a really good job taking care of it. Where they run into issues is their equipment, which we can't put on our insurance program because we don't own it. And of course, we can't put them on our insurance program because they're separate. If they called themselves a committee of the town, we could add them on the next insurance renewal. So that's the issues they run into, are their own insurance for liability, because it's so expensive, and their equipment condition.
Okay.
And of course, there's been talks about how we would apply for grants and they would give us ideas of things that they wanted, but everybody's just been so busy on all angles that that hasn't happened.
Right. So do you know when a building assessment was last done for that building, like roof-wise and that type of work? Have we ever had one done?
So the roof was completely repaired and we did a major project, I believe in 2007.
13, 14 years ago.
which, due to its condition previously, that was a really good job.
So we have probably, usually it's like a, what, 20, 25-year roof for shingle roofs? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
For town buildings, just so you know, it's usually 40 or 50 years, but
Right.
that doesn't mean it's right.
Well, we still need to keep an eye on it,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And then speaking of roofs, the Public Works building roof
Mhm.
is
I
something
thought
that's
that-
been brought up a
Yeah.
couple times, but I
Mhm.
didn't see anything
I
in
thought
here.
that would be here. In fact, we had talked about the fact that he needed to do something with that, even if he tars it or something. It needs some work. I wouldn't put a whole new roof on it, because I don't think it's worth
Mhm.
doing that. But you should be able to figure out some sort of tar or sealant that could help them, hire a contractor that comes in and does it.
Right.
We're not gonna get a new public works building. We'd be talking 1.5 million, if not 2 million,
Right.
It's just outrageous cost for those. Like the one over in Newport, that was, very expensive.
But that includes everything.
Yeah, they were over 2
Public
million
Works,
for
Fire
everything.
Department,
Yeah.
Police Department, and then the town office is just this little building next to it.
Popped on the side of it.
So,
So can you also check with Public Works about that
Yeah.
and where they stand on that as far as
Yeah, I'm
whether it
waiting
needs to
for
be
that.
additional or maintenance type thing?
the
Yeah, I'm
sand,
waiting for the roof.
Matt keeps
for Public
asking
Works.
about
The sand
sand
report.
part of the snow plowing.
I'm more concerned with looking ahead to where we need
Yeah.
to be than behind of
Yeah.
what we did right now. Just
Okay.
because
Well, that's,
if we
I was
have
just
to-
bringing it up, cause
Yeah,
Matt,
oh, definitely. I think Matt will probably mention it again too, but I think we just need to kind of focus and,
On what's ahead
give
of
him
us.
a target, like, we need this and this and this to complete your budget to make sure that, the department has what they're gonna.
Now,
do.
anybody that has questions, for them, they'll get a written list of the items that we have.
okay.
I can't think of anything else. At least
I
not.
can't either, I'd just like to say that on the whole, I think everybody did their best.
Mhm.
And I appreciate the work that they did. Cause I wouldn't wanna have to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of work to
It
put
is a
into
lot of
all
work.
those budgets and get the numbers together and whatnot. Do they
Yeah.
have an Excel spreadsheet to put their budgets into?
No, we have another spreadsheet for them, but some of them don't like it. Some created their own, previously with the department heads that were here, they all used the same thing. Everybody's got their own setup.
We need to kind of
We're gonna make that.
streamline this and make it so it's usable for.
Well, I think with the exception of the public works budgets, they actually are. What's happened is like on police, the formula wasn't taken out, which understandably, if you don't do all the personnel, it's not gonna add up for the
Right,
bottom, and
yeah.
we should all realize that. The only, sheet that didn't work so we could understand it well is that highway one,
Yeah.
which again, I would have fixed like I usually do, but
Okay,
The
that's the
formatting part.
umpteenth time you said that.
well, I don't like to provide something that's not
No,
satisfactory.
and I admit, I was the one that wanted to see, and I'm glad that we did see it. So, I know we adjourn.
I second your motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
It's a good thing there's two of you or you couldn't leave.
All right.
All right,
Wow.
let's turn this off.
Okay. I'm going home now, I'm going to bed, and nobody can call
Well,
me.
you all just wanted to dig into that. I thought that you would go down, have a few things, say, we want to meet with X, Y, and Z like you did last year, but you just,
I'm hoping somebody took my chicken out of the oven like 3 hours ago.
I'm sure Dean ordered out. I'm gonna have a can of soup. I'm gonna open up a can of soup, and I'm gonna have that, and then I'm gonna go get into my PJs, and nobody's gonna see me for a couple